Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is time for Revolutionary Change. I'm Jen Perelman.
I'm Peter Hager, and what you gonna do?
You can't help yourself, right? You cannot help yourself.
I can't help myself. How could I? Jen, were you a Hulk Hogan fan?
I was. I loved the WWF was what we had, and I loved it. And my dad and I would go. It was like once a month to the James L. Knight Center in Miami. And I did like Hulk Hogan. I saw Andre the Giant. I've seen Rowdy Roddy Piper, Paul Orndorff. I've seen a lot of those people.
Oh, so you're a knowledgeable person on this
I'm a knowledgeable person, but I'm not a fan as an adult of Hulk Hogan.
No.
He's pretty douchey. Like, I'm not, as an adult, I don't think anything.
One of the things about Terry Bollea that I think will be his legacy, as I indicated in the post we just put out, he's going to be remembered for a multitude of things. Nobody took wrestling mainstream like he did. And of course, he was given the opportunity of a lifetime by Sylvester Stallone to star as an antagonist for part of the Rocky III movie. Wrestling was never mainstream like it was prior to that opportunity.
No, it was that era. That was the era when it started getting big. And I remember the transition because I remember when before WWF, it was, I want to say it was like NWA. And that was Dusty Rhodes and that whole thing. And I remember going to see those. And it was definitely much more under the radar and off the beaten path than it became once it became WWF and they went into that whole era. It did. It changed the whole thing.
Well, I do want to correct Dave Hunter. Yes, it was first Hulk Hogan, but then it was Stone Cold Steve Austin, and then it was The Rock. But it was an interesting era, to say the least. Wrestling had a couple of peaks, if you will. It was never really something that, I can say was of great interest to me. But being that Jen and I are a little over a decade apart, it's probably reasonable to assume that when Hulk Hogan was at the top of his game, was at a similar age for Jen as it was when Stone Cold was at the top of his game. I went to WrestleMania 15 in Philadelphia, and that was an interesting experience.
So what year is that you're talking about now?
99.
Okay, so 99. All right, I was already, married for 2 years and in law school and living in San Antonio. Like, I was not anymore following anything having to do with wrestling. I was like, I was like a grown-up then.
It just kind of, I think in many ways, it just kind of came along at the right time. That's probably the only way that I could really describe it. At the time, I guess you would say I was a freshman going sophomore year of high school. So yeah, time-wise, it just kind of made sense. And I followed wrestling for maybe 3 years tops. Then it just, I didn't pay attention to it anymore. I realized that it was silly stuff. And, honestly, the thing about wrestling that I really enjoyed, hence why I liked, ironically, I would say my favorite wrestler is also Jordan Chariton's favorite wrestler, Bret Hart, because I liked the art form. I liked what the performers would do in the ring. I wasn't necessarily caught up in the storylines, which frankly got pretty stupid after a while.
Well, that started taking the precedence of the whole project, and it became their stories. It became like a soap opera situation.
But I think what got neglected in many ways was the health and wellness of these wrestlers. And there were multiple attempts to deal with this problem over the years, but there was no circumstance greater than our very prideful, when I say this, friend of the show, Jesse the Body Ventura, who stated from the very first time and stated it every time that he came on, whether as just himself or with his son Tyrell, that wrestling would have looked a lot different if at a very important inflection point in 1986, where the wrestlers attempted to unionize, and it was Jesse Ventura that led this effort.
And who was one of the people that worked against it?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, Jen, because I think we're going to have to play that clip. So here we go.
Were often exploited. These Wrestlers were not unionized. They didn't have medical protection.
There was definitely a need for a union in wrestling. That's what Jesse Ventura was trying to do.
And so, just so you guys know, this is Bret Hart, who I think was probably the best in-ring performer, along with a few others. But, you know, for me, when I would watch wrestling, I admired, as I said, the art form that Bret and a few others brought to the table.
I don't know of him. I guess it was just a different era.
No, Bret was in that era. He was the Hart Foundation, if you remember that tag team. But anyway, the point is that, you know, Hulk Hogan was the larger than life personality. That's who people knew. They knew of Hulk Hogan because he was, oh, what you gonna do, brother? But when he got in the ring, it was very substandard in-ring performance, to say the least. But for a lot of other guys that were in the ring, this was life or death in many cases. And one thing that Bret talks about, a lot of others talk about, is that wrestlers are typically on the road like 300 days out of the year. You know, this is like a traveling circus. So it's understandable why they would want to go to lengths to try to, you know, get themselves proper health care, paid leave, a living wage. Again, things that people like Vince McMahon would never in a million years want to give their wrestlers, hence why Vince McMahon is a billionaire.
Hence why I think first of all, I've never liked him. I've always disliked him. And I think I always saw him as somebody just taking advantage of everyone else. And he is. I find him gross.
Couldn't agree more.
Jesse Ventura was trying to do.
Please welcome Jesse the Body Ventura.
Right before WrestleMania 2, Jesse was trying to start a union and undermine Vince.
I'm here to make sure that Vince McMahon tells it like it is. Jesse.
You know, I was on Vince McMahon's team all the way, so I went straight to Vince and said, hey.
I was on Vince McMahon's team all the way.
So that's essentially, it's so scabby. You know, it's like your fellow workers are trying to do something to benefit all of you, and you're not with that. You're going to go with management.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but this is what you have to remember about Terry Bollea, is that he was always a self-promoter. I mean, this is a guy who, during the height of the wrestling era of the 80s, you know, he always felt that he needed to be the guy at the top of the mountain. And so when he was given opportunities in the movie business, he would take like 6-month sabbaticals and go off and film No Holds Barred or Suburban Commando or Rocky. Well, Rocky 3 was before the boom, but that's what led to it. But that was just, nobody else in the business was given that kind of freedom. And so I'm to believe that today, one of the main reasons why he was able to be at the top of the business, despite his limited in-ring capacity, great self-promoter, great character. But if you ask me, Jen, Randy Savage was just as good, was an infinitely better in-ring performer, and was just as good at promotion. But
I remember when he started. I remember in the very beginning of the Macho Man era. I remember him. Yeah.
I'm talking about all the way to the top. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's very clear that
go down, and I have more to offer than the average wrestler.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
I'm into it now.
Okay.
A little fun.
Play.
But before I continue, the point is, Hogan is showing you that the only thing that mattered to Hulk Hogan is Hulk Hogan. To hell with the rest of the wrestlers. And I believe as a result of him throwing the entire team, if you will, under the bus, Vince McMahon made sure that he stayed on top for as long as he wanted to, much longer than he should have. And I think it all has to do with the fact that he killed this union attempt in the mid-'80s. Would you agree that that's part of it?
I'm sorry, I'm distracted.
Yeah, you are. Would you like me to repeat what I said?
Can you give me the brief version?
Is it safe to say that Hulk Hogan stayed on top of wrestling much longer than he should have because he made a deal with Vince McMahon to basically curb any attempts at wrestler benefits.
Well, I can see that. I mean, he definitely was in a position where he was getting a lot more mainstream attention and he was getting these opportunities, and he just apparently didn't give a crap about anybody else. So he was going to use whatever he was getting on the outside, help himself. Nobody else needed, like, just very self-serving. It's gross, really.
Jesse stirring shit up, man. He's trying to start a union here, and next thing.
And there's one of the greatest wrestlers of
Rowdy
all time.
Roddy Piper.
And I would also say that if you guys haven't seen They Live, highly recommend you see that movie.
I've seen Rowdy. How about that? I've seen Roddy Piper live. How about that?
He was a great wrestler.
He was a great wrestler.
He was a great entertainer.
Yes.
But the language that Hogan is using, stirring shit up by trying to start a union, like that's a bad thing. Like, how dare you try to look after your fellow wrestlers?
Look, it's interesting to call him is like a class trader, but that's essentially what it is in this case. I mean,
he traded his fellow wrestlers for his own mountain. That's what he got.
Yeah.
He made.
I wish I knew this then. Like, I didn't really know that was going on then. Right.
I don't
like
really
back
know
when this was happening, I still thought he was fun and cool. Like, I wish I had known more about this then, but.
Oh, absolutely.
You're going to have a bunch of wrestlers walk out on you in Madison Square Garden and just want to let you know what's up.
Hulk Hogan double-crossed Jesse and ratted out all the guys that were trying to get a union going.
Hulk Hogan stoozed him out.
Hogan ratted him out. The whole thing was a sham. It was something he pulled out of the air, mostly like, we should get together. And quite frankly, no one in the locker room.
Jen, how much plastic surgery has Vince McMahon had?
I don't even know that. Like, how do you get your eyebrows to almost be completely vertical? That's what I'm fascinated by. He looks absurd.
How much can you stretch your face, I guess, is the question.
I don't know. I mean, he looks horrible. When was this? When is this documentary from?
Pretty recent, from what I understand.
Yeah.
I don't know anything past that. As ugly as he is on the outside, he's 10 times uglier on the inside. I mean, he was a ruthless bastard of the highest order.
For sure. And apparently Hulk Hogan was willing to work for him. And I mean, not in the sense of wrestling, but in the sense of against his own colleagues and to cuddle up with this. It's gross.
It is, but it's not entirely surprising. As we have said before, in the capitalist hierarchy, which again, pro wrestling would be a great example of that. And things obviously evolved over time. And I will always believe that one of the biggest differences between Stone Cold and Hulk is that Stone Cold is a guy who had to go through the trials and tribulations of the wrestling world. He was a low card guy to a mid card guy. He really paid his dues. He really knows what it takes to get through the trials and tribulations of the wrestling business, whereas Hulk Hogan never really experienced that. He was a main attraction along with Andre the Giant for many years before the business really hit its stride. I mean, at that time, no one really knew what serious money was like. And then, like I said, Rocky III really changed everything. That's funny. Yeah, he does look like a Vulcan.
All right, let this finish.
Way to get behind Jesse.
So what Vince would do, he called each wrestler one by one. He's like, I know about the meeting. Everybody that showed for the meeting would not have a job in the morning. So nobody showed up.
It was almost always acknowledged that these guys will never go for it, and these guys will never stick together. And the wrestlers would tell me that too. We say boycott WrestleMania altogether, and then half the guys are going to go back and do it and undercut us. Unionizing never happened. And I think it's actually less likely to happen now than it was right before WrestleMania 2.
There's the great badass, if there ever was one. A guy who always looked out for everybody else. And, it's always interesting, Jen, and I see this a lot in acting especially. The guys who play the bad guys are typically the nicer people, and the guys who always try to play the hero are always the biggest dicks.
I'd have to sit and calculate it out to know if that was true, but I definitely would have would have liked to know all this when I was younger, you know, about what's going on here with this like unionization stuff.
Well, I told people forever that Hulk Hogan would bury every wrestler he could, and I was trying to help the wrestlers, and we all know how that worked out. It didn't work
Exactly.
out too well.
But he really sold out his people. It's gross.
did.
It's just ugh. So all right, was there anything else we wanted to talk about Hulk Hogan? Because I always like to go back to one of my favorite quotes, which is, if you have nothing good to say about the dead, say nothing. They're dead. Good.
Colin, could you pull up the YouTube post that was just dropped a little while ago? I want to show the image, and I want to just read the statement regarding Hulk Hogan. And guys, if you're watching, make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you share this live stream. Make sure that you click the bell for future live streams so that you are reminded of when we go live, although I would imagine most of our audience does know that we do go live on Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Yes, Colin, YouTube post. You know posts on YouTube? No, save Colin. Oh, is that you, Jen? Smart ass. I am a very matter-of-fact person. Is that it, Colin? Is that it right there?
Okay. Okay.
Take your little toy down. Hulk Hogan, in many ways, was America, but he didn't fight for the rights of every man because he didn't. This is what Jesse Ventura alluded to on our podcast regarding his role in the sabotage of the wrestlers' unionization attempt back in 1986. Rather than fight for his fellow employees to have health care, paid leave, and a living wage, he fought to make his boss, Vince McMahon, a billionaire. He'll be remembered for taking wrestling mainstream with Rocky III, body slamming Andre the Giant, and as a cultural icon of the 80s and 90s. He will also be remembered as a self-promoter who threw whoever he needed to under the bus in order to reach the mountaintop and stay there for longer than he should have. But most of all, he'll be remembered for his silence when horrific revelations were revealed regarding Vince McMahon and his hero, President Trump, were brought to light. He may have called everyone brother, but in retrospect, he rarely treated us like one. And if you can scroll to the image of choice, that's how we'll be remembered. Never, ever changing that character for his entire adult life. Living through it. And frankly, it just, I remember at the time, I was at your house. I remember this, and Jason was there, and we saw him get on stage and do this. And I just thought, this is just silly stuff. This is just, again, politics is wrestling in so many ways. So I can certainly see the tie-in to this story, but how are you going to remember the Hulkster, Jen?
I mean, on the one hand, he definitely did a lot for that industry, for, professional wrestling. And my thing with that is that although we know it is ridiculous and silly, it's still extremely athletic, right? So I always kind of have a certain amount of respect for that, regardless of whether or not it's plotted. But I think of him now as somebody who is selfish and looking out for himself and not in any way in solidarity with people. And it's not a good legacy. It's not a good legacy. Like being known as being great for your industry, but being a complete douche in every other capacity. It's not a good legacy. And honestly, just having this picture exist out there is not a good legacy.
Not anymore. That's for sure. And that's how he's going to be remembered. I'm not saying that he should have been out there promoting Kamala Harris. Absolutely not. But it's a reflection of who he always was. He was a self-promoter from beginning to end, and that never changed.
And actually, it makes sense that he would support Trump. He's basically Trump of the wrestling world.
Yeah. Yeah. Just, well,
snake oil salesman.
You wouldn't even need to say that. The only thing you really need to say is, if this is the guy that was promoting Vince McMahon, naturally, he would promote somebody like Donald Trump. The two go hand in hand. So that is the legacy of Terry Bollea, aka Hulk Hogan. Sorry, like I said, I have a little fun with it, and like I said, wrestling is it's humorous, and that's really what it's supposed to be about. And I think when we look back on it, it's really just a question of, will there be positives to his legacy? Yeah, there will. There are people who are just like, he's a racist and he's this and that. And I'm thinking, okay, yeah, there's negatives to him and a lot of people. But there is no denying that Hulk Hogan took wrestling into the stratosphere. I'm not saying he was the only one, but he was the biggest.
No, and I see somebody talking about Malcolm Jamal Warner in the chat that, we're talking about, is Teresa saying, but we're talking about the white, focusing on the white guy. But if you see this, Teresa, it's because we have a lot of negative things to say. We're pointing out the hypocrisy. But yeah, I was very sad to see that Malcolm Jamal Warner died, actually.
Yeah, he was, so he was the oldest son, right?
They only had one son.
Right. No, I'm remembering it now. I mean, again, the Cosby Show was a little before.
He had two older sisters and two younger sisters.
I see. I mean, the Cosby Show was big in the mid '80s. I mean, I was very young at the time, but I remember that when it was on.
It makes me sad. I mean, he was, you know, from all accounts, a very decent person and a nice guy. I mean, I don't, you know, it's just sad. And such an accident, you know. Which
is always, and again, everyone's got conspiracy theories about it, but no question, it is always tragic. The burning to death and drowning, to me, are the two worst possible ways to die. There is nothing worse. So, with that said, we appreciate everybody being here. And remember, guys, if you would be so inclined, go to patreon.com/revolutionary change. For as little as $5 a month, you could become a supporter of our small but mighty and growing channel. We are getting ever closer.
Wait, don't scroll them yet, because I'm going to add one.
Okay. Oh, we got another one?
We have another one. I got to go back a little bit here. Go ahead. Keep going. Do your thing. Just don't scroll them yet.
I know, but you can always interrupt me while I'm doing it and just expect that I'm not going to lose stride. Ain't breaking my stride. Ain't nothing going to slow me down. Oh, no. I don't know why I'm feeling all musical like this evening, but I guess we're off to a good start. So with that said, make sure that you do go to patreon.com/revolutionary change to become a patron. If you would like to become a YouTube member, that is an option as well. And of course, we're already off to a good start with a handful of super chats. First one from Paul Green Dennis. Thank you so much for the $5. His last appearance on WWE, he got booed off the stage in January.
Wow.
That's too bad.
Okay, we're updated. We can go. We're ready to roll.
Oh, we can scroll?
We can scroll.
Wonderful. Who is our new patron, Jen?
So our new patron is Hala Hamid Sabek.
Oh, beautiful.
And I might not have said that totally right. And if I didn't say it right, Hala, I'm so sorry. I have gringo. I have a case of the whites.
Well, you made your effort, and that's what counts.
Right.
JG 1982, thank you so much for the $5. Hulk Hogan is actually a bigger liar than Trump. Jim Cornette has several podcasts on the outrageous lies of Hulk. He's a prolific storyteller. Yeah, it's not going to work for me, brother. Yeah, he is notorious for being a self-promoter and a liar, and that's what he does.
Yeah.
And again, when you throw people under the bus, you have to tell a lot of lies in order to maintain that illusion that everyone else is lying and you're the one who's telling the truth. But now that he has passed, I am very confident in saying that while he's going to have a day or two to be remembered, there is going to be so many people that are now going to come out and really say what they think about Terry Bollea and talk about probably stories that have never been talked about before, but now will get talked about. Why they wait for the person to pass in order to do that, I'm not generally sure why, but my guess is that there's going to be a lot that we will hear about regarding the Hulkster now that he's no longer with us. More stories will leak.
I wait with bated breath.
I'm sure you do. We all do. But as we said, this is why we don't really care about wrestling, because it was an art form at one time, but it's been lost now. And now we're just kind of living in idiocracy. We are living amongst very silly people, Jen. Is that kind of like a fair way to describe the kind of circumstances we're living in? Like this is idiocracy in many ways?
You're going to have to be more specific, because I feel like I'm living in a combination of Bizarro World and Media Armageddon. Like this is some really dark apocalyptic shit that's happening. And then you see people just going about their lives like it's not like nothing's going on. We're just rounding people up, sticking them into camps, bombing the world. Like, no, nothing to see here. We have a Holocaust going on, but no.
One of the hardest realities about these moments that we're living through is the fact that so few people end up speaking up when they need to, especially when given the opportunity to do so. As we have seen countless times, there are people that want to just get paid. And it's not just MAGA. We see this across all of not just corporate media, but there's a lot of opportunists within this sort of sphere. One of those people happens to be Charlie Kirk. Now, Colin, do you have that video that I sent you of Charlie Kirk from earlier? I'm not sure which one it is. If you can just grab it, because I just want to play the beginning of it, because I thought this was interesting.
Noah, I did see that Israel declared it's annexing the West Bank. And yeah, that was inevitable. That was inevitable. They've been working their way to that.
We're going to get to Netanyahu in a second. So This was the beginning of Charlie Kirk's clip that he put out earlier today.
Very similar to our support for Ukraine. We're sending a lot of money over there, not really getting, in my opinion, a huge return on investment. And so that's like the first thing that comes to mind, because when people talk about their distrust or dissupport for Israel, that's the first thing that usually comes up is all the money that we're sending them.
I think we have a lot bigger issues at home. I think we should be spending most of our tax dollars on securing our border, keeping our home people safe, rather than, I mean, we've seen illegal immigration that Joe Biden let through our southern border come in, and we've seen thousands of Americans die because of it. I think we have a much bigger problem on the home front rather than sending money to foreign countries.
I think it's critical that we remain friends with them. They remain our ally. I just don't think we should be subsidizing them as much as we are.
Colin, what happened to the beginning of this clip where apparently I was in one of the clips? I don't know why.
I saw it. I did see it, by the way.
I can grab that. No one told me. I'll grab that now.
That was why I wanted you to play it.
Okay, so you don't want to play. You don't need to show this.
I think Charlie is just trying to, again, when you have a platform as big as he does.
Peter wants everyone to see how he got clipped in this video.
Yeah, no, I gotta call out Charlie.
We've made the big time that our little channel has been clipped to be part of this video, right? I mean, that's
down here, Colin. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So apparently, Charlie Kirk decided to get a clip of me for whatever reason.
It is not. They pulled from a bunch of people.
Yeah, but why me? I'm not.
Charlie Kirk has had a massive pro-Israel bias his entire career.
Charlie Kirk is so biased.
He's a total Zionist psychopath. He's almost. Well, he is.
I know, but I think it's funny that they used you in this clip.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
Can we sue them for a copyright violation?
Well, you're using the Hodge twins that have like 1 million people. You have Cenk Uygur who has several million people.
Right.
And then all of a sudden.
There's you.
Yeah, like there's me. And I think they tried to capture like a certain type of lighting that made me look like I'm kind of.
But do you not see how close your face is to the camera compared to everyone else that they've shown? I'm just pointing it out. Do you see it?
Maybe. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
But I have improved, have I not?
It's like all face.
Yeah.
I know it's fair use, Travers. I was joking.
Yeah, well, at least Kimmy has something nice to say. Little Zionist psychopath.
It's almost like the allegiance to the other country is more than the United States.
Oh,
I can't
yeah.
stand that.
Charlie Kirk is playing up anti-Semitic tropes.
He was accused of critiquing Israel's actions in Gaza during this summit.
Charlie Kirk is supposed to be a Christian conservative. This is just an excuse to spout anti-Semitism.
And the only people who talk like that are people generally that are getting paid. It sure seems that way. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, I've been saying this for a long time, that people that speak the way they speak positively Zio are either religious zealots or on the payroll. You're one or the other.
Matt, that is not what I was doing. I can assure you that that is not what happened there. It would appear to me that the clip that they took was of when I used to try to do this live stream with natural light coming in directly from outside. And that was during like a sunset situation.
It was not good. And you look
on
shiny sometimes because then you end up looking shiny.
Shiny.
He does. He looks shiny. Balmy.
Yeah, but what's that a reference to?
Why are you shiny?
Yeah. It's from a movie we like.
Why are you so shiny? I don't know.
Shiny.
I'm not sure.
A birdcage.
Oh, okay. I didn't know they said that in there.
When he's sitting when Albert is sitting outside the office and he's messing with his face with the powder, shiny. If you guys have not seen the birdcage, please.
It really is. It's really special. All right,
Anti-Semitism, Jen. And you know that this.
I'm sitting here just discussing. Now you just made me watch Rahm Emanuel and Jonathan Greenblatt back to back. Like, and he's
Jen,
still there. He's still there. Make it go away.
Have you seen the interview with Rahm Emanuel and Barry Weiss yet? Oh,
no, and I don't want
Semitism.
I think there are a lot of people who are becoming more anti-Semitic because they want to be a part of something and then just get sucked in.
No, they're becoming more anti-Semitic because of people constantly playing the Jewish victim card. Absolutely. And maybe also because, I don't know, they're committing a Holocaust in the name of Jewish people. Just a thought.
And so despite what Charlie wants us all to believe, there is a reason why we are singling them out. Because I don't know who these guys are. I don't really care who they are. What I care about is the message that is getting put on their podcast. Colin, if you would, please grab that. Grab the Netanyahu clip. I think it's fair to say that I would be surprised if there is a single person within our audience. And I mean a single one, because I know we have people in our audience that are on all different sides of the political spectrum. But I think it is fair to say that we probably don't have too many people, if any, that watch the Nelk boys.
I've never heard of them.
But they have a tremendously large platform.
But so do a lot of people that I've never heard of. We're so like, what do you call it? Like, we're so in different echo chambers. There's so many different ones. And if you're not in one, you don't even know the other one exists.
Well, it was brought to our attention a number of months ago, as we had pointed out regarding Benny Johnson, Tim Pool, and Dave Rubin, that these guys all have their hands out ready to get paid, whether to promote Ukraine, whether to or Russia, or to promote Israel, which of course is the big one, because we know for a fact that Netanyahu has met with several of these MAGA influencers and just overall content creators that are willing to push the pro-Israel narrative.
Can I answer Kimmy? Because Kimmy's asking, but why do they have a large platform? Which is something I've said. There are a few content creators where I really believe that they're operatives. These are paid operatives, whether it's whatever
Pac-Man,
not just Pac-Man, but whatever PAC political, action committee is funding them, or whichever political party is funding them. Like, to me, the Midas, whatever that is, that's a DNC funded
100%.
shill.
100%.
So, these are just being put out there to try to compete with people like Rogan, and they're getting so much funding. And I also wouldn't be surprised with a lot of these if their following is not all real people. I've said that for a long time about a lot of stuff, whether it's the K-Hive, quite honestly, even AOC people. I think it's bots and paid accounts that are just sort of doing that. I don't think they have a real, and I wouldn't be surprised if these kinds of channels were paid subscribers or whatever, not paying them, but people that they pay to look like you're subscribing.
It has now been estimated that 434,000 Palestinians have been mass murdered. Now,
wait, what was the number?
434,000.
And where is this number from?
Donziger posted it on his Instagram a little
Okay.
while ago. And so when you have this level of desperation on the part of somebody like Netanyahu, who's going to pay top dollar, this is where you know that these guys are just in it for the money. And before I play the clip, Colin, do you have that image from the studio that I sent you a little bit earlier? I mean, if this doesn't tell you what this is all about, I don't know what does. Because it's pretty clear to me that the only reason that they would be promoting this is because they're getting paid to do it. I mean, when I see that flag, I want to burn it. Like, I really do.
And JG 1982 never underestimates stupidity of masses to latch onto vapid content creators. That is true for sure. But I don't think that alone explains the amount of following and, let's say, supporters that some people seem to have when compared to in the real world. It just doesn't add up.
No, I definitely agree. But this is also another example of there is no boot that some with large platforms will not lick if it allows them to get paid. And all I can say is, especially if you're this late in the game, you're an accessory to murder as far as I'm concerned. Because you are promoting a genocidal murderer of the highest order. There's seldom been people like this. And they're gleefully doing it, acting like they're in the right. But here's the thing. The biggest problem with this, not so much that they just brought him on. It'd be one thing if they brought him on and they actually questioned him. They allowed him to say this.
This war, the people of Gaza should have the choice. If they want to leave for other countries, they want a freedom of choice. Why are they locked in? Hell, we're not locking them in. Anybody could leave, but Hamas is locking them in.
And they won't say a single thing back to him that this is a...
Just saying.
You kind of messed up what I was doing.
I'll put it back. Continue.
Suppose they want to leave.
Okay, go ahead.
But can you imagine actually...
No, and that's how come I know that they're not legitimate. Because if they were legitimate, this could have never happened. Just like how Debbie doesn't ever attend things that aren't planted, all of that. It's all scripted because these are people that cannot actually interact with regular people that are not on a payroll because they're not liked and they're not likable. And so these guys, this to me proves that whoever these tools are on the Zio payroll one way or another. Or he wouldn't be talking to them. That's what it says to me. So it's not just bootlicking, it's complicity with the Holocaust. These are people that are Holocaust, I won't say enthusiasts, but they're apparently willing to promote a genocidal maniac's perspective in the midst of a Holocaust. So I'd say that would be a tarnish on their, well, right. That's what I'm saying. They're paid. We talk about these people being assets for Mossad and all of these things, but what is an asset? Let's think about what does it take to make somebody an asset? Not everybody who's an asset is like a secret spy or an undercover person. It's just somebody who has information or works on your behalf in some capacity. These guys are acting as assets. So when it comes out later down when it's unfortunate because they seem like they're young guys, but this is going to be quite a legacy that these two are going to have.
Oh yeah, and it gets worse.
They want to go to another country, okay? Why shouldn't they have the freedom of choice to do that? Because this is all upside down, The victim of this horrible terrorism is called the aggressor. The the people who are oppressed by Hamas are seen as supporting Hamas. Give them a choice. Give them freedom. Give them a life and give them a future. They can't have that with these Hamas stormtroopers.
Hamas.
Stormtroopers. And who are the stormtroopers? Because the only stormtroopers I see, well, other than ICE, would be the IDF. Those are the stormtroopers. So I don't know who he's talking about, but he's not, because first of all, it's to say he's a liar is almost complimentary.
An insult to liars. Like he's like what were they calling themselves before? Super MAGA, or what was that term?
I don't know.
Ultra MAGA. Okay.
This is a psychopathic person. And the footage and these clips and him talk, historically, it will be very interesting to see 20 years down the road what the real legacy of him will be, and how how he will see his end and what that will look like.
Likely he will not be alive, and
or we won't know where he is.
We won't, and probably won't shed any tears either. But if you need any bit of a reminder as to why that Netanyahu is as evil and satanic as he is, here's a friendly reminder.
Netanyahu deliberately boosted Hamas to try to prevent a Palestinian state.
Yeah, sure. He deliberately and systematically even told on record, whoever wants to avoid the threat of a two-state solution has to support my policy of paying protection money to the Hamas.
So what we did, with the permission of our Prime Minister, is to let Qatar to transfer a huge amount of money in cash, probably more than $1.4 billion. By doing it, we increase the power of Hamas. We did everything in order to make sure that Hamas will go on controlling Gaza.
I mean, you have people telling you to your face that this is all the Netanyahu government's idea was, in order to maintain power and never lose it, let's just boost up Hamas as much as we possibly can to scare the shit out of everybody. And then they'll continue to think that we're the ones that are protecting them. And what's amazing is you would think at this point that this is kind of a known thing. And yet there are so many willfully ignorant people who think that this is somehow a lie, that these guys are telling lies, that there's no way that they would do this. Or is it just a simple case of they're going to go down with their Zionist ship, period?
But it isn't just, I mean, that's just our playbook everywhere. The playbook everywhere is to do the same thing. We take radical insurgent type groups and put them in positions of power to take over democratically elected any sort of governments, not even just really anywhere, and put in whatever radical person we want because they're more willing to work with us, because they're more willing to screw over their own people. So that's the kind of people we put in charge of different countries. That's what we try to do. That's what's happening in Syria. That's what we've done in Libya, in Iraq. That's what we've done everywhere. And so, no, it's not surprising that they did the same thing with Palestinians. They did it with the PLO, with Arafat. This has been going on forever.
We'll finish it up.
And Palestinian Authority will control the West Bank, so they will fight each other.
He fed the beast, and it exploded in our face. If you base your national security strategy solely on force, then you need to win 24/7 forever.
Yes. And that's the whole, therein is the problem. If your security is based on force, then you're constantly having to do it 24/7.
And again, I believe in free will, and I believe in free speech. And Jen and I are very libertarian in that regard. But I will say this. The fact that the Nelk boys decided to say this after the interview, I hope that their channel collapses. I really do.
So we walked in and there was just like 20 people in suits there.
Yeah.
The setup was already there, both flags, we couldn't touch anything or move anything.
And they don't give you any restrictions like don't ask this?
I'll be honest, they gave us a paper with questions to ask. But they also said they kind of, they gave us a script to ask, but we didn't really follow it. Yeah. We tried our very best to.
He's
To
openly
what?
admitting-
To be a bootlicker? You tried your very best to lick a boot?
He openly admitted it, or he openly said that he wasn't doing something that he clearly was doing, and you sat there in silence and didn't say anything. So you're doubly full of shit, and the only reason you're making this video is because you're scared shitless that your audience is onto you and that you're going to lose them, because there are certain points of no return now in our culture. Epstein is a point of no return. Israel is a point of no return. And not only did you cross that line, you decided to play Judas and take that fucking money from Netanyahu, Pontius Pilate, if you will, and crucify Jesus. Sorry to get all biblical, but
yeah, no, don't do that. But it's interesting. Like, is it my imagination, or do all these kinds of like content creator for sale guys all kind of look the same?
Look like a bunch of douche canoes that are hanging out.
They kind of
Muscle
look like
Beach?
they could all be in a. They look like they could all be in a boy band.
Yeah, something like that, or just hanging out on Venice Beach.
I don't know. They look vapid.
Extremely.
To ask some questions, but I think
personally, I like the questions you asked to him.
Yeah, it was tough, but with a guy like that, I just wasn't really educated on the subject,
Yeah, I just totally wasn't educated on the subject. And
okay, and so he posted this video of himself saying that to his audience, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so can I honestly, as someone who's a content creator, why would you be interviewing someone and talking about something that you're not educated on? Why would you do that at that level in that capacity? This isn't like learning some, niche crafting skill that you never learned before, right? Like, how can you not be educated on this?
The most controversial, by a wide margin, world leader is appearing on your stupid show, and you don't even prepare for it.
That's what I mean.
Really know anything about it, so
which is why they allowed him to go on there. They knew that for whatever reason, these tools were in their bank. They're on the payroll.
Absolutely, and
they're
totally
on the
agree.
media payroll. Like all of these propagandists that work for people, like whether it's the Zio state or American Empire, all of those sort of propagandists, they have all their inside people that are content people, like this guy, these guys. And those are people that are basically who are the stenographers of their nonsense.
And they rely on them more than anything else. They rely on this idea that there are going to be people that are going to promote them, period. That's what it comes down to. They are supremely confident that there are still people out there, but I'm telling you, they are getting completely dragged for doing this, as they should. They're getting
but my thought is, okay, if they were an actual real organic channel, then I would say, well, they'll lose subscribers or, however that goes. But I don't think it's real and organic. So their numbers are going to just stay the same, because I don't think that it's real anyway. I think it's a facade.
But this is why we know that the change is coming. It is inevitable that the state of Israel is going to fall. How do I know this? How does Jen know this? Because of this. French President Emmanuel Macron says France will recognize Palestine as a state. You cannot continue to promote a lie when even the French, the cheese-eating surrender monkeys, will come out and say that Palestine is a state. French President Emmanuel Macron announced Thursday that France will recognize Palestine as a state in a bold diplomatic move amid snowballing global anger over people starving in Gaza. Israel denounced the decision. No, they were going to embrace the decision, I'm sure. Macron said in a post on X that he will formalize the decision at the UN General Assembly in September. The urgent thing today is that the war in Gaza stops and the civilian population is safe. Well, we're long past that. Could you imagine putting out that statement almost 2 years after this started?
No, it's pathetic. Can I give a shout out to my dad who's watching, who doesn't, I don't think, normally watches. That's my dad. Hi, Dad.
Hi, Mr. Pilchick. The mostly symbolic move, well, you know what? Give credit to AP, for saying it that way.
Yeah.
The mostly symbolic move puts added diplomatic pressure on Israel as the war, the genocide, and humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip rage, just like they're now annexing the West Bank. France is now the biggest Western power to recognize Palestine, and the move could pave the way for other countries, US, UK, to do the same. More than 140 countries recognize a Palestinian state, including more than a dozen in Europe. Well, that's not really saying much. It also goes to show you how most of the world, including Global South, all recognize Palestine, except for half of Europe recognizes them at this point. And certainly probably mostly Eastern countries, I would imagine. The Palestinians seek an independent state in the occupied West Bank, annexed East Jerusalem and Gaza, territories Israel occupied in the 1967 Mideast War. Israel's government and most of its political class have long been opposed to Palestinian statehood and now say that it would reward militants after Hamas's October 7th, 2023 attack. Shocker. And of course, coming straight from the genocidal horse's mouth, we strongly condemn President Macron's decision.
No, you make him sound Russian.
Israel Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu said in a statement, such a move rewards terror and risks creating another Iranian proxy, just as Gaza became, not because we did anything wrong. A Palestinian state in these conditions would be a launchpad annex Israel, not to live in peace beside it.
All right, can we talk about the sort of elephant in the room with the France thing?
Please.
Just, okay, why now? Why now? First of all, what took them so long to get to this point?
Well, we all know what the biggest reason is and what the biggest reason always is. It's not politically tenable to defend Israel anymore.
No, okay, but so what I want to know is then, what was the turning point for Macron? What was it? What's going on? Because the timing is very interesting. Is it, okay, they are now willing to acknowledge that people are starving? They've known that for a long time. That's not new. The Holocaust started, almost 2 years ago. So that's not new. So why now? What's in it for him? That's what I'm curious. And I don't know enough about French politics or how their, electoral process is or where they are in it to know. But he obviously has some sort of motivation for doing this. And it is very, very just symbolic. Let's be very clear. This is a very symbolic gesture. And yeah, that's kind of nice. But I am curious, what's in it for Macron? Why now?
Well, in accordance with always our wonderful audience that shares with us, of course, Canadian Socialist has always been on top of a lot of stuff. The French left pressured him. They won the last parliamentary election, and they are pressuring them. And you know what? It's probably a big part of it.
Okay, well, good. That's how it's supposed to work. That's how the process is supposed to work. But that's what I'm saying. Whatever it is that's causing him to turn his position, it isn't out of the kindness of his heart. That's my point. I just didn't know what was going on there politically to encourage this or push this, but good. And the French, we need to learn from them. There's a reason that the yellow vest work, right? So the French they don't tolerate. I mean, they got in the street with yellow vests because they wanted to raise their retirement age a year or something.
The French, ladies and gentlemen, depending on the year, have the highest rated healthcare in the world. Why do you think that is? Because their people demand it and they don't accept anything less. Kudos to them. We should learn a thing or two from the French. We'll finish it out before we bring in our esteemed guest. The Palestinian Authority welcomed it. A letter announcing the move was presented Thursday to Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas in Jerusalem. We express our thanks and appreciation to Macron, Hussein al-Sheikha, the PLO's vice president under Abbas posted. This position reflects France's commitment to international law and its support for the Palestinian people's right to self-determination. There was no immediate reaction from the administration of President Trump. And I doubt there will be. But not a surprise, I would imagine on your part, that Netanyahu, of course, came out immediately and denounced it. And now we're looking at a situation where the pressure mounts for the end of this horrific genocide. We all know that things have been set in motion that are not going to change the fate of most of the Palestinian people.
Yeah.
But as Jen and I have pointed out time and again, the whole purpose of this is that there will be a reckoning for Israel and the Zionist movement. And hopefully that will happen sooner rather than later. So we, as Jen would say, bear witness. Jen, would you like to do the honors, or would you like me to do the honors?
No, you need to do this. This was something that you were inspired. This was something that you were inspired to, to do.
Anytime, Jen obviously has taken a lot of heat to speak up, especially as a Jewish woman in South Florida. As a Jewish woman in Eastern Pennsylvania, I would imagine that Maura Finkelstein probably had a similar situation, not just amongst her colleagues at the college, but also with people in her life. It is very difficult to speak up and speak out without there being some form of reprisal. That is the essence of what we're dealing with today. We saw that with Mohammed Khalil. We've seen that with what Zohran Mamdani is going through right now as the candidate for mayor of New York City. And yet we maintain our optimism because there are courageous people out there that are willing to speak truth to power, especially if they are a member of the Jewish community, which is considered sacrosanct among so many. But with that said, Maura Finkelstein, welcome to Revolutionary Change.
Thank you so much for having me and that really generous introduction. It's a real honor to be here.
Hi, have we ever met?
You look so familiar, but I'm like, I don't know if it's just because of online or what, but I would like to imagine that we have.
Okay, because I never know with especially in this line of work, if it's content creation or if it's Jewish geography, how I know people.
Yeah, no,
I don't know
that.
So talk a little bit about, you recently had a situation that has happened to you that is something, unfortunately, that's becoming very common. In the fact that we no longer have free speech in this country, and certainly not at the university level, which is where one could argue it's the most critical place for that to exist. And particularly professors that have been outspoken about things have been particularly persecuted. But it is very interesting when said professors are also Jewish, because we've also seen where we'll have Jewish professors like the lunatic over at NYU who, runs around and claims the victim anti-Semitism card. And then there's professors like you who, see reality. So would you talk a little bit about what your experience was like at the university with what's going on right now, and being somebody who is speaking out for Palestine?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So, for those of us who have been doing this work for a really long time, before Al-Aqsa flood, there have been so many faculty members and students and staff who have been surveilled, harassed, terminated, suspended, etc., because of Palestine stuff. But for the most part, they're Palestinian, Muslim, Arab, Iranian. And then there's like Norman Finkelstein, no relation. So, the landscape of higher ed for the past few decades has been pretty dire in terms of Palestine. And I would say in large part because of organizations like Hillel International, which is the reason that I was fired. And I can say more about that, but also APEC, the ADL, Canary Mission, all of these surveillance watchdog organizations that have been harassing, doxing folks who have been part of Palestine liberation movements for a really long time. But I think, in my case, I sort of came of academic age in 2004 when I was a master's student at Columbia University, always a trash institution. And Canary Mission, Hillel International, and this organization called the David Project was going after Joseph Mossad and trying to get him fired. And so I've been seeing this for a really long time. But as you said, I sort of always thought that being Jewish protected me, it gave me cover. I couldn't be accused of anti-Semitism, even though I often was. And I really think that Al-Aqsa flood changed all of that. And we've seen how things have exploded. And as early as October 12th, 2023, I was under investigation by my college for teaching about Palestine, which is something that I've been doing for 10 years with the knowledge of the administration. And I think my case was a really early and very visible case of what's been going on, which is that these Zionists who in the past have used sort of intimidation and rhetoric to silence Palestine liberation movements by accusations of anti-Semitism or accusations of, danger to Zionists, et cetera, et cetera. They're now using lawfare to actually change the way we actually can speak and show up in space. So they're weaponizing the IRA definition of anti-Semitism, which is really basically a definition of how to protect Israel. And they're weaponizing Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 in terms of who protected classes are. And that's what happened to me. So just as like a brief sketch of what happened to me, in the fall of 2023, I was investigated for my teaching and for my publications, and academic freedom always sort of got in the way. And there was no real evidence that I was doing anything other than teaching and writing from my expertise. But in November, and then much more in January, students started making complaints against my social media presence. And what I later found out was that the Hillel chapter at Muhlenberg College, which is the Hillel chapter of Hillel International, which is an organization that pretends to be a space for Jewish life on campus, but is an explicitly Zionist organization with ties to Israel. And, they claim that Israel is at the center of all of their work. The director of Hillel and then the Israel Fellow at Hillel, so 65 campuses across the United States, have an Israel Fellow who's funded by the Israeli government, has a year or two on campus. They're a former Israeli soldier, and their job is to help American Jewish students forge a deeper relationship with Israel, hopefully move to Israel and join the Israeli military. So these two men, who were staff members at my college, started a WhatsApp group with students in Hillel leadership where they would surveil my social media, determine that it was so dangerous to their students that they would screenshot what I was posting, send it to these students, and encourage them to file complaints. And this all came out in the investigation. They were very proud of this work. And after a few attempts at this, in the days after the Department of Education first released its list of 90 schools that were under investigation for Title IX violations, mostly anti-Semitism, in January, within days of that, I was put on leave and investigated for reposting a slide by the Palestinian poet Remy Kanazi, which basically said that, Zionism is racism and don't normalize Zionism. And I was investigated for a few months. The investigation determined that I was probably only guilty of poor taste, but not violation of Title VI. At my college, it was the Equal Opportunity Act. And my college fired me in May of 2024, essentially because the student made the argument that Zionism and Judaism are the same. And the college said, we're not really a space of education. We're not going to investigate this ourselves. If the student says it's true, the student is right. And, I went through a few appeals. And when it was clear that I was not going to be reinstated, I resigned in March of 2025. That's the short, long version.
Well, I worked I was a small business owner for a decade. I did fundraising for college and high school sports teams around the country. And I worked with a lot of schools in Eastern Pennsylvania. Can you talk about just what I consider to be the behind the scenes infrastructure that exists at these private liberal arts colleges like Muhlenberg? You've got plenty of them. You got Arcadia. I mean, I could go down the list, but you know all of them, Franklin and Marshall. This is not a case where, kind of like the problems I dealt with dealing with the athletic director for fundraising purposes, the ADs would basically tell me it's not my call. I have to go much higher up. And I think the same problem exists at these colleges where this is not about academia. This is about the rich controlling society and basically saying, if you're coming here, this is how it's going to be. And if you don't do as we say, we will pull our money from the school. It's that simple. Do you think that that plays a huge part in this?
Yeah, 100%. And I'm glad that you brought that up because that's the other side of the coin. There's the Zionist repression, and then there's the financial model of higher ed in the United States, which has been in crisis for a long, long time. So I think it's really clear at schools like Columbia or Harvard or Yale or even UCLA that these aren't really schools. They're like hedge funds that, are also real estate development firms, and they offer classes. Like we can really see the financial model of accumulation at schools those big ivies and research institutions. At a place like Muhlenberg, it's a little bit more complicated because we have a very small endowment. This is a college that's in real financial distress and has been for a really long time. And so schools like Muhlenberg, schools like Franklin and Marshall, a lot of these small private colleges that don't have these, they don't have the endowment that like a college like Swarthmore has. They really rely both on tuition, they're tuition driven, but they're also donor driven. And, there's been, publications that have come out showing this. But over the past few decades, there has been a move from Zionist philanthropists to look at schools like Muhlenberg and say, this is a school that's in financial trouble. And if we infuse it with our money, we're going to have control over what this school can be. And there's a few schools that have been like a really good example of how this has worked, and Muhlenberg is one of them. So it was already a successful model before Al-Aqsa flood. And so what you have is these donors who, even though they're not contributing millions of dollars to the school, they're still contributing enough that if they were to pull their support, the college would not be able to function. And that's exactly what happened at Muhlenberg, in addition to the pressure from Hillel. And Hillel International is one of the biggest donors to Muhlenberg. There were also private donors who said, we are going to pull our support if you do not fire this person. And then you have administrators who are in a position of saying, and, I'm not defending them. They've made these choices, but it's like, do you defend academic freedom and the idea of the college, or do you worry about the bottom line and decide that you can sacrifice your faculty, your staff, your students, as long as you don't lose your donors? And, I think that this is shines a light on why we need robust public education in this country, because these models are completely unsustainable in any semblance of learning and education and research and study. They instead are just corporate models. And so you have more and more administrators who are not coming from an education background. They're not coming from an academic background. They're coming from a business background. They're brought in. How do they keep the board of trustees or, whoever else is in control of this institution happy? How do they keep their donors happy? And in the case of Muhlenberg, the chair of the board of trustees is a Zionist. His wife is Israeli. They've been very clear about their investments, and there's absolutely no way that a college can make a decision against their donors and their boards of trustees who are bringing in the money. And so we're seeing that erosion of federal support. We're seeing that sort of erosion of the idea of a public, inclusive school sort of collapse upon itself through the model of funding, especially at these small colleges, which can't survive without these donors.
And what is, I'm noticing like this big picture moment here. So the concept of donors determining content and quality and what's going on in education makes about as much sense as shareholders determining what we do about healthcare.
Exactly.
And so it's the same nonsense that we're looking at. And it's not surprising. And I also want to say, I have a lot of very firsthand experience with Zionists that like to use money with strings, Zionists that like to control people with strings and make them dance.
They're not doing a great job of pushing back against that, stereotype about an international conspiracy. They're actually doing exactly that.
Well, I don't think it's a conspiracy. I think it's true. And there is an international conspiracy when it comes to Zionists. It's just not, it has nothing to do with the fact that they're Jews, right? Like that has nothing to do with it. That's this premise we've seen for generations. There's this Jewish conspiracy. No, it's a Zionist conspiracy, a white supremacy, imperialism conspiracy, but it is not a Jewish conspiracy.
Yeah.
Maura, were you raised in a Zionist household growing up like Jen was?
Yeah, I was not. I was really lucky. Neither of my parents were Zionists. They never wanted me to go to Israel. I was never encouraged to do birthright. We didn't have the same politics. And, my parents and I have come a lot closer politically over the past 2 years because, as my father has said, and now referring to this as a genocide, you can only see so many dead babies. But when I was growing up, It was still the air that we breathed. I grew up in going to religious school at a synagogue in Washington, D.C. There were Israeli flags hung on the walls. There were signs that said, "We stand with Israel." This was the 80s and 90s. It was just being normalized. God was being replaced with Israel in Jewish spaces. And so I wasn't getting that at home, but I was still going to the space once or twice a week and sort of seeing it. But I was really lucky. I must have been a pain in the ass to raise, but I was a very contrary kid. I think it was because I was queer. But I also just didn't like nationalism. I was one of those kids who wouldn't stand for the Pledge of Allegiance in elementary school. Yeah. We're a small, mighty group. And so I was like, I am not going to do that for this country. Why would I do that for two countries? And then I was really fortunate. I had a teacher in high school who in 1996 put me in a position where I was able to read Edward Said's The Question of Palestine, which I'm pretty sure I didn't really understand. But what I did understand was that there was a Palestinian telling me a story about Palestine that had been completely removed from my Jewish education up until that point. And I think that that was a really radicalizing moment, which is why I wanted to become a teacher. People talk a lot about how we're indoctrinating our students, and we just don't actually have to work that hard. We just give them the material and they free themselves. And I think that's why Zionists see education as so dangerous. God forbid you tell them the truth and give them the opportunity to figure it out through learning.
Yeah.
Well, I could definitely see the second you mentioned that you didn't stand for the pledge, I'm like, oh, Jen found another spirit animal, like immediately.
Here's the thing. I have never said the pledge. Like, I'm just not a pledger. I'm not a pledger. I'm not a swearing allegiance kind of person. I'm not a joiner. It's not my thing. But to me, the idea of crossing your heart like this is really not that different from saluting like this. And it never sat right with me. And I certainly was never going to say the under God portion because I've always been an atheist. So I
have a great idea. Why don't you just say one nation under Trump? If you do that, you might feel better about it.
Your impression is spot on. I'm very impressed.
I am appreciative that there's someone else who didn't do the pledge, and I still don't. I still don't do it. I actually will stand because I feel like there's no need to draw attention to me, but I do not cross my heart, and I do not say that. It does not come out of my mouth.
Cross your heart and hope to die. Stick a needle in your eye. Just making sure.
Pledging my allegiance. No other country does that, by the way.
This is one of the reasons why I constantly point out Ayal Yacobi on our podcast, because he's one of many, but he just happens to have a substantially large platform. He's a very proud Zionist. He's from Princeton, and his papa, who is from Israel, is a tenured professor at my alma mater. Jen, where'd I go to college again?
Rutgers.
I see it as these. I do believe that the movement is spiraling. I do. We've said for a while that it's most likely it's going to end up with 2 million dead people in the desert. But what we cannot let happen is the Palestinians cannot die in vain. And it is up to us, as was pointed out by friend of the show and fellow anti-Zionist Jew, Stephen Donziger, that the number is now approaching 434,000 dead Palestinians.
I still think it's more, but that's just me.
The cost of war thinks it's 19 times, which would be closer to like 900,000. But I think regardless of whether it's 400,000 or 1 million, we're also watching 1 million people being starved to death. I mean, it's my mind just, it broke a long time ago, just sort of trying to get my head around this.
Because we're not supposed to be seeing this. Let's be very clear. We as humans, our minds are not really equipped to know what's going on in every corner of the world. Okay. Like we're really not like we're not really equipped to know what we know to begin with. But this level of like depravity, trauma, this level of moral wrong, we're not really capable of processing it. Most people are just not. Like it takes a certain psychopathy to be able to see what's going on and not have it be changing who you are. If you're able to see what's going on and it's not changing you in some way, I have to question that, because that to me this should be changing everybody. This is not normal.
Well, we pointed out just a little while ago about the Nelk boys, whoever the hell they are, that they're willing to platform Netanyahu for $1. And I'm thinking, okay, you guys need to be put on a list. because eventually there is going to be repercussions, whether it's in The Hague, whether it's here in the United States, something is going to give. But this cannot be forgotten nor forgiven. This is in many ways the defining moment of our respective lives. Like, it's that big.
Yeah. And I think it's really I mean, it'll be really interesting over the next few months. And I think we've seen that recently. All of the people who are going to suddenly start, you know, the New York Times is publishing Omar Bartov's like very 21-month overdue opinion piece about how I guess it's time to say that this is genocide. And it's like, we're keeping score. We actually know who has been enabling this genocidal machine to continue and who's been fighting against this. We have the receipts, we have the records,
we do.
And it's very, very interesting. The people who are sort of trying to figure out, you know, is it bad enough that now I'm willing to say maybe this is genocide, or maybe we just shouldn't let this happen anymore. But we're reaching this. We keep reaching a tipping point or a red line or whatnot, and then we seem to pass it. It's I mean, it's horrific.
I've seen things that nobody's supposed to see. Like, I've seen things that I'm never getting out of my head for the rest of my life, and I'll never forgive the fact that I have to have that in my head. And I do have to have that in my head. We should all have it in our heads, because this is a failure. This is a complete failure on the part of humanity. So we need to see it and own it and bear witness to it. And I'm never forgiving this for the rest of my life. Like, this is like it's life-changing.
Yeah. And I think that there's nothing, I mean, we've already failed the Palestinians, whether they be in Gaza, the occupied West Bank, occupied East Jerusalem, or in the diaspora. I mean, I think that the world has failed them over and over and over again before October 7th, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, we do not, those of us in the West, we do not deserve to be forgiven. And I think about a reckoning and the just deep-seated racism and Islamophobia that sort of makes up the fabric of so much of the world. I do wonder, when the reckoning comes, what is it going to look like? And will it actually be an acknowledgement of what has been enabled and supported and funded for the past, 21 months?
It's going to be interesting. Are the Zios going to really be pariahs around the world? It's starting to kind of look like that. I don't know if you saw what was happening in Greece, but the cruise ship was unable to dock and let people off because they weren't having it. And that's the kind of response that we're going to, I believe that we need to see more of that. I think we will see more of that. And eventually, will it putter off? Maybe. And you'll see people that were actively involved, people that were higher up in the food chain, that'll end up like, basically going to places like Argentina and going into hiding after this to avoid actual legitimate charges. But this is a pox on Jews forever. And it shouldn't be, but it will be, because this is how it's being sold. And that's the problem. And I'm so resentful of that. I don't want to be affiliated with this crazy genocidal crap.
Yeah.
And I also think it's fair to say that it becomes more and more clear every day that this has always been a class war. The people that support the state of Israel generally are from a more affluent part of society.
Or religious zealots, or just in the secular world, yes. But in the crazy religious world, it's Christian Zios, are a big part of it.
I think, considering you're in academia, I think it would be appropriate to talk about this story that just happened the other day at the London Opera House, where a gentleman by the name of Daniel Perry decided at the end of their performance that they were going to display the Palestinian flag, and this is what happened.
All right, it led with the back part. This is the beginning. See? Oh, yeah.
Now, as you can see, clear as day, there is a person that was actually attempting to rip that flag out of Daniel Perry's hands. Who was that person? His name is Oliver Mears. He is the director, the conductor, if you will, of this play. So he clearly is a big deal, if you will. And so as the story goes, as it did as in accordance with the Daily Mail, dancer who unfurled Palestinian flag during Royal Opera House performance is banished. As Oliver Mears told this person after the show, you will never work in London performing arts ever again for doing this, for basically drawing attention to the fact that, I mean, let's face it, besides the United States, you know, the UK is definitely number two. I should just say England, because we all know Scotland and Ireland are not on board with this. But, you know, the British have, for whatever reason, not been as outspoken as they need to be, although I would imagine a lot of their people probably are more so than our people have been. But the fact that you have this guy that would come out and make this statement effectively saying, oh, you want to have an opportunity to share your thoughts? Well, you're not going to get a job again. Oh, you as an academic want to espouse your opinions about Israel? No, you're never going to work in, you know, college, you know, departments ever again. You know, we're just going to blacklist you no matter where you go. And I think that that there is the crossover between the two stories. I think the significance is definitely there. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that comparison. And I always love seeing these images and these videos of people who, regardless of the risk and the cost to their, you know, personal or professional life, can't be quiet in the face of a genocide, and can't be quiet in the face of a genocide that our tax dollars and our communities are actively supporting. And so, you know, I don't know this person, although I hope someday we can have a conversation about what was going on for them. But I think the thing that really resonates with me is that, you know, I was texting with someone in Gaza yesterday, and I said something to checking in on her, and I said, you know, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. And she was like, well, I'm actually living through it. And it was just this reminder of like, how are we positioned? And when we think about loss and we think about what we're giving up, like, what are we actually losing? Losing a job, even losing a career. I mean, I did work 20 years for this career, but in the face of genocide and the images that we're seeing every day, and the fact that like hundreds of people are just slaughtered every day trying to get food and water. I mean, these are very small things to give up. And I think as we're watching across the world on campuses, in art spaces, Palestine Action, all of these folks who are just completely aware of the fact that great change does not come without great loss. We actually have to give up things, and the risks actually are worth it in the larger context of what are we fighting for? We're fighting for liberation. We're fighting for, you know, the ability to be safe and have food and water and live on your own land and not live under an apartheid genocidal state. The stakes are so high that I think, you know, for so many people that I know, I'm inspired by their willingness to give things up. I did not, in some ways I was lucky because this happened so early that I don't think I ever really was aware of what was happening or what I was going to give up. I was willing to do that, but I wasn't really as clear as I think so many people now who understand the stakes. I mean, 80 students at Columbia were suspended and expelled 2 days ago for, you know, protesting against genocide, which is literally what you're supposed to do when you're in college. Like, what else are you supposed to do? So I think that the clarity that I'm seeing from so many people who are giving up great things, who are taking great risks, I think, you know, I'm pretty devastated and pessimistic most of the time, but then I see these movements, I see these actions, I see people really willing to put themselves on the line. And I feel like, you know, this is going to be a long, hard battle, and I don't know if I'll see the end of it, but I do believe that we have we can move in the right direction if we can build some kind of collective movement with an eye on a future in which we are all free.
Yeah. I'm amazed by these kids. I'm amazed by them and their bravery because, you know, I can say that when I was in college, I wouldn't have risked my degree. I wouldn't have risked my degree to now, granted, I wasn't faced with a Holocaust in my face. So, but I don't think I would have had that commitment and that level of bravery to do that. So I'm amazed that they're doing that. And I don't know what the end of the day repercussions will be for them down the road with that, because, there's going to be a lot of lawsuits involved, but who knows what happens with that. I'm very inspired by all of those students.
And I think, I'm old enough that, I went to college in the late 90s, and I think that I lived in a world in which, the 90s weren't great, but the idea of a future felt possible. And I think, what I hear and see from students right now is that they are living in a world in which they are profoundly aware of how all of these movements and crises are deeply intertwined, because they're watching climate collapse. They're watching an economy that is, will never support them. They're seeing a job market that has no place for them. They're seeing genocide. They're seeing gentrification. They're seeing, police brutality. They're seeing all of these things, and they're making connections. They're seeing how they cannot be free if Palestinians cannot be free. We will not be free if Palestine is not free. And I think, the clarity that I hear from so many student activists, and, not to put all of the burden on them, this is something that we all need to be involved with, but they just profoundly understand that they don't have a future in the way that perhaps my generation thought that we did. They're willing to take risks because they also understand that we are all implicated. And the status quo, if you think the status quo is working for you, then what on earth is wrong with you? The status quo doesn't work for anybody except like 5 billionaires. And so students are making connections. And I think that global interconnected view that a lot of them are getting through their communities at colleges and universities both makes them so powerful and makes them so dangerous to these institutions.
I think you're right. Now I'm a little older than you, but what I do remember is that when I graduated from college, you could still get a job and afford to live. Right. Like you could afford to live with a lot of jobs especially with a college degree. It made a little bit of a difference. And I think you're right. So these kids are realizing, especially since they can't get jobs that can afford for them to be able to live, that they don't really have anything to lose. It's more people that are feeling like they've got nothing else to lose by putting stuff on the line because they see the writing on the wall at the end. Anyway, most kids that graduate from college now can't afford to live on their own.
And they'll be in debt for the rest of their life.
Exactly.
And it's, of course, the most vulnerable of those students who are putting the most on the line. It always is.
Yeah.
I definitely agree. And I want to conclude this segment, if you will, with a statement from this gentleman who decided to basically risk his career in order to make a statement that has gone viral across the world.
I chose to do my demonstration during my curtain call, a moment for myself. I chose to make it about something bigger than me. I did it because I want to draw attention to the atrocities that are taking place towards the Palestinian people by Israeli Defense Forces currently in Gaza. The people who get to go and see opera, who have the opportunity to go and see opera, are the ones with power and influence to be able to help. However, they're remaining silent. The right-wing media coverage has been honestly quite comical to me. I believe they're trying to make a mockery of me and a mockery of my defiance and steer the story away from the actual story of what is happening in Gaza right now. In the past 2 days, 18 people have died from starvation due to Israeli food blockade. The United Nations and the International Court of Justice recognize that this is a genocide. So I find it disgusting that my act of resistance has been called inappropriate by the Royal Opera House. When the curtain came down, Oliver Mears came on stage and said to me very aggressively, "You will never work for the Opera House ever again." In which I responded, "I don't give a flying fuck." I acted alone in my demonstration because I have felt quite alone trying to have these conversations with others in the industry. As artists, we are lucky enough to have these platforms that reach huge audiences. Therefore, I feel we have a responsibility to use them. And that goes for producers, creatives, anyone that is working in the industry. Use your platform. Speak up.
Very cool.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. That was nice. I'm glad there's people like that in the world. There are a lot of people like that in the world. We just get so stifled and shut down from a platform perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I can't remember who, somebody I follow on Twitter tweeted the other day. I'm going to remember who it was in like 10 minutes. But it's not that people are not aware of what's going on and trying to do everything to stop it. It's that, the spaces of power, the structures of power are built to block collective action and people from pushing back. And of course, there are Zionists. Of course, there are folks who do not care and are apathetic and whatever. But, there are so many people who see what is happening and they're trying to do everything that they can to stop it. And yeah, I mean, using your platform in whatever way you can is one of the most important things that we can be doing right now.
So what are you doing? What are you doing now that you are no longer teaching at Muhlenberg College?
Yeah, now that I'm free. I'm working on a book about Hillel International and their history and present in fueling this repression on our college and university campuses and sort of the power that Zionism has over the United States. So that's been a fun project. I'm trying to do as much as I can to support mutual aid organizations. The collective that I'm most invested in right now is the Samir Project. So I would encourage everyone to follow them, check them out, and donate as much money as you possibly can to them.
What is that? And we'll put the information in the description.
Yeah, so the Samir Project started like a year ago. It's three Palestinians in the diaspora who started raising money that they would then send to Gaza and give to people on the ground in Gaza, Palestinians in Gaza who are involved in. First, it began with getting tents to folks as they were being displaced, and then it became about getting food, water, fuel, and now they have a big medical campaign that's working to get baby formula or any support for babies who are starving to death. And they're working on medical evacuations. They're providing mobile clinics. They're just doing the most amazing work with absolutely nothing. The prices of everything just keeps going up and up. But because of the way they're set up, it's not an NGO. It's a collective that is actually about mutual aid that is invested in just giving money to people in Gaza who know exactly what they need to do to take care of their communities. And so they're providing the basic necessities for the most vulnerable communities. There's also a lot of folks who are sponsoring individual campaigns and creating really important relationships. But the Samir Project serves folks who do not have the resources to have those individual campaigns themselves, and it's much more collective. So I would encourage people to look into either sponsoring a mutual aid or a crowdfunding project for somebody in Gaza or getting involved with something like the Samir Project.
That sounds like another one. We've also often talked about Heal Palestine. I don't know if you're familiar with that organization. And we had Steve Sosby on here before, who's the founder of that. I think we have to do everything we can. I still don't understand how any of these organizations are able to get anything to the people in Gaza. Like that's what blows my mind, how they're able to get anything in and how any of these kids are able to get out.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to platform myself, but I started a Substack as a way to raise money for the Samir Project and get attention to what they're doing. And so I've been writing a lot about how they're getting aid in and how they're dealing with medical evacuations and what it looks like to work with Kogat, the arm of the Israeli military that sort of controls the borders and determines who's allowed in and who's not. And the way that NGOs are really failing. I mean, obviously, Israel is blocking aid, but also NGOs like the World Health Organization are also failing in particular ways that on the ground mutual aid organizations are able to actually attend to. So there are ways of getting money into Gaza, but then the problem is, what can you actually buy with it? So right now, the Samir Project is mostly able to buy vegetables. They can get peanut butter and canned tuna fish, and they're mostly getting these nutritional packets, which are not food, but they're calories. And the problem with getting baby formula, it's all powdered. Israel demands that only no foreign formulas allowed in. You can only buy it in a powdered form from the Israeli government. So it's of course very expensive, and also you need water to mix it. Water is contaminated. So you're seeing mothers who are like basically giving their babies tea because they don't have anything else. So anyway, these mutual aid campaigns, because they're keyed into folks who are on the ground in Gaza, are the best way of actually getting the most necessary goods to folks to
Absolutely.
help them stay alive. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Will you come back when your book is out, and we will?
I'd love to. I'll hurry up and write it.
Look, you've got no shortage of material, and I have my own history with Hillel in various different places.
Then we should talk.
Well.
I'd love to talk to you about
I went
that.
to the Hillel house when I was in college, my freshman year, being new somewhere and thinking, okay, well, I can meet some people, whatever. And I never liked the vibe of it, but it wasn't because I was an anti-Zionist or anything at the time. It wasn't my thing, you know?
Yeah.
This is the best book.
He's got Rafat Al-Reer's book.
Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful, beautiful book.
It is. And it's a book that basically attempts to cut your heart out. Like, that's the entire premise of the book, is that if you really want to know what it's like and what the day-to-day experience was like, and this was only for a few months, but imagine going through that for 2 years. Yeah. Something's going to change in this country in a very big way. And because of courageous individuals like yourself who are doing what is necessary, on top of the fact that it flies in the face of what has always been the core of the Zionist project, which is to conflate Judaism and Zionism, in conjunction with the complete grift that is Christian Zionism, John Hagee, Kenneth Copeland, Joel Osteen, all of it. People are seeing through it. And as much as we want it to end tomorrow, it isn't going to end tomorrow, but it may end a lot sooner than we think. So can't thank you enough for coming on and for doing what you do, because it can be very thankless and very lonely at times. But just know that we support you all the way. I have no doubt our audience does. And we certainly hope that you will come back when your book is out. And we look forward to helping it be successful at that time.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for providing a platform so that we can be talking
Of
about
course.
the things that we most
Where
need to
are
be talking
you,
about right now.
Maura? Where are you located?
I am currently in Brooklyn, New York.
Okay.
For now. We'll see.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you. It was so nice to meet you. You're lovely.
It was really nice to meet you too, or see you again.
Certainly will. We will definitely be in touch.
Great. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Great conversation. Yeah. And if you like these conversations as much as we do, because it is one of the main drivers of why we do the show, we would really appreciate it if each and every one of you would consider, you can't have them all, but please go over to patreon.com/revolutionary change for as little as $5 a month. You could become a supporter of our small but mighty and growing channel as we close in on 50,000 subscribers. I believe we're at 47,300 now. So, you know, we're making our way up. We've gained a few hundred over the last couple of days, which is great. You know, we're looking forward to the continued growth of our channel. We have received a couple of more super chats. Another one from our good friend JG1982. Thank you for the $5. I'm sick of all these new content creators with open mouth thumbnails. I wish they would stick a phallus in there. Okay. Well,
does it say dildo? Do you have a problem with the word dildo?
Dildoin. JM, thank you so much for the $2. Always great to see you. And Maximums, thank you so much for the $1.99 super chat. That is very much appreciated. You know, we've said time and again that there are not a lot of good people in politics. Some of them are out there. And one of them is Ilhan Omar. As I have stated before on this show, I don't agree with all of her decisions in terms of her political moves, but I know that she is somebody who deeply cares about this country, despite the fact that everyone wants to paint her in the most grotesque ways possible. And it isn't just coming from the radical conservative side of politics. It is very much in play with the liberal elites in politics.
Honestly, way more so. Other than the real bigots on the right that are just very bigoted, she definitely gets more grief and aggravation from the centrists and the libs.
A lot of times it is not considered a necessary political maneuver. And even somebody like Thomas Massie, you know, you're not really going to see him. I mean, yeah, he will go at Trump when Trump obviously is going at him, but you're never generally going to see the actual calling out of your fellow colleagues when they do something that is just completely egregious and frankly is done against their own people. And it's somewhat, you know, fortuitous, if you will, but it is Rashida Tlaib's birthday today. And I'm sure that she wishes for nothing more than for her people to be free. Now, of course, we know that AOC doesn't think the same way that supposedly her fellow squad members do, deciding that her career is more
Can we
important.
stop using that term? Can we finally stop using that term? It was stupid then. It makes less sense now. It's just, it's not a thing. There's no squad. There's no squad. And if there were one, AOC sure shit ain't on it. So can we just stop with that? It's so silly.
Colin, could you please pull up the tweet that I sent you from Ilhan? And I think that this clip is very telling because what Ilhan points out here, and I'm going to play it for you guys, is she is highlighting the fact that there is now a massive protest, or should I say protests, that are going on the regular in Tel Aviv. And here it is.
I have mixed thoughts. So on the one hand, obviously it pleases me to see people in Israel, you know, protesting on behalf of the Palestinians, but it's a lot too late, right? It's a lot too late. I also, and again, I want anything that works is good, right? Like I want whatever helps facilitate ending people dying is good. Let me be very clear about that. But I don't think that this is the kind of thing wherein we watch this and think that, okay, Israel and its people can be salvaged. They can't. This is an outlying situation in terms of what we know about the mindset of the majority of Israelis. We know that more than 80-something% of them are on board with ethnic cleansing in one degree or another. So, you know, these kinds of protests make me, you know, yes, it's nice to see it, but I don't want us to get distracted and think that, okay, so that gives these guys who are protesting a pass in terms of their complicity and participation in Holocaust. It doesn't. So while it is nice to see that, this is by no means an indicator that Israel can be salvaged in terms of coexisting on planet Earth with the rest of us.
This is about as close to a direct call out as you are going to hear from one fellow party member to another, especially two that have been as closely associated as they have for the past 6 years. The genocide of the Palestinian people, of the people of Gaza, continues as members of Congress vote to fund Israel's defensive and offensive military capabilities. This is immoral, and no amount of excuses will ever make it okay. And that's the truth. The fact that Alex cannot stand on her position without trying to
position. Alex doesn't have a position. That's the whole problem with Alex. No position. She takes no position. She's like a jellyfish.
This has always been Colin. Could you just pull up that photo that I sent you earlier, if you could? I'd really appreciate it.
That's so gross.
Well, yeah, we don't need to show that one again. The one of Jen. This
Do you
is
have a
always,
picture of me?
yeah. I have
Which
a
picture of
you.
me?
You'll see.
Oh, the one of me and Ilhan?
How maybe.
Okay.
We'll see.
I love that picture. And the way that the light is in that picture, and I do know it is the glare of the ceiling light. I do know that. This wasn't like when I saw Dolly, and I know for a fact that Dolly does glow. This isn't like that. It was light, but it looks like Ilhan radiates.
Yeah, well, you said that she's like this little ninja, if you will.
I called her
princess.
I called her a Jedi Muslim princess.
She does have a little bit of a Princess Leia thing going on.
Totally. Because also just the way she came into the room, she's very unassuming, and she's very graceful, and she's soft spoken until she's not, and then and then it's still soft spoken, but very fierce. But no, the way she even just walks around, the way she carries herself, she's very, very stealth in her movements. She doesn't draw attention to herself. She's really awesome.
Can you just remind people of that nice little story when you two were at that event and she kind of came up to you?
Yeah, she was really sweet. So she had us we were at a fundraiser for her that the Muslim community down here put together for her, and she was in town. And so we were there, and she was asked if it would be okay with her if I spoke. And honestly, either way, it was fine with me, but she was very gracious, and she's like, of course, and that is such a big deal. People that you guys have no idea how big of a deal that is for somebody in her position to allow me to speak at an event that's for her, right? Like this is not the kind of industry where people gladly share spotlights. It's just not like that. So there was that. And I was just so thankful for that. And I don't even really remember what I said, because, I don't ever prepare anything. I just sort of like speak. But at one point I was waiting this was at, it was an iftar, right? Yes, because they went and prayed.
Yeah, I think so.
It was an iftar because they went over and prayed. So this is the one thing I'm going to tell people that are non-Muslim people at an iftar. And it's kind of like, it's not a secret, but if you're not a Muslim and you're at the iftar, when they go pray, you can eat. And I know it sounds kind of like sneaky to get into the buffet line first because they're off praying and doing their doing, and you're kind of just slipping into the buffet line before they get back. But it is a common thing, and they don't mind it. I'm just saying. So I was in the buffet line at the dinner, and a lot of the people were coming back in from prayer, and she was just walking by, but I didn't even see her. And she tapped me on the shoulder and just gave me a really big hug. And she's lovely.
Yeah, she's one of the special ones, much as we've pointed out, much like Thomas Massie in the GOP, Ilhan is one of the very, very few bright lights in the Democratic Party. There's not many.
And the truth is, she's very bright. Make no mistake, right? Like, I've met different legislators. We've seen different people, and we know that you do not have to be bright to be a legislator. We know that. There are so many of them, both in the House and the Senate, that are morons. It's just clear. And she is just so bright. And I knew that before I met her, because I actually had read her autobiography, which I highly recommend, by the way. It's quite good. And if you do the audiobook, she does her own narration. So it's really kind of cool. But I knew how bright she was just from that a while ago. But yeah, she's exceptionally bright. She reads her stuff. She reads the legislation. She actually reads things before talking about them and signing her name to them.
Well, I actually was one of the few people that got to ask her a question at this event. And the question I decided to ask her was that despite all of the hell that she goes through, and she gets quite a few death threats on the regular.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if it's consistent across every single congressional session every 2 years, but within the last 5 years, she was the fourth most effective legislator in Congress in terms of getting, whether it's bills passed, amendments passed, because remember, there's a lot of bills that get passed, but you don't hear about them. You know, they're not front page material.
Well, and she's also very much like how Bernie has always worked, where she gets things in bills and she gets things done for her people that aren't necessarily big news, mainstream pieces of legislation. But nonetheless, when you look it up, she's been very successful as a legislator.
Yes. And that was one of the questions that I asked her. I said, despite all that you go through on a daily basis, what do you attribute your ability to be one of the most effective legislators in all of Congress? And she said, I read the bills. I do the work.
That's what because she does. And she does do the work. Also, she writes her own stuff, a lot of it too.
Yes.
She's very, so she's very informed. She doesn't just show up and push a button that someone tells her what to push.
I have always felt her in particular. She is the person that more than any of the group, more than anybody else, this is the person that deep down AOC is jealous of because she knows that she isn't her.
Because she's the real deal.
She is.
And and guys, again, if you ever have the opportunity to read or listen to her autobiography, once I read that, now anytime when people say crap about her or think they're going to intimidate her or threaten her or talk shit about her, I think in my head to the stuff that I've heard that her life story. And I'm thinking they have no idea who they're dealing with. They have no idea who they're doing. Like, she is not going to be threatened and intimidated by politicos or other people that are in her line of work. Like, she's fierce.
Yes. And the big difference between her and Rashida is that Rashida does have a reputation of not being the nicest person at times. Whereas Ilhan is just, she's elegant is the way I would
describe. And yet we
it.
saw what happens when she gets crossed.
Oh, she doesn't back down because there was a person that was at one of these events that was trying to, let's just say, throw her under the bus. That's the nicest way I could describe what this situation was like. And Ilhan got right in his face. This guy wasn't a huge guy, but he was, anybody's bigger than her. I mean, she's a small lady.
She's small. She's like Medea.
Yeah, very much so. But she went right up to him and said, you're not doing this. And they basically were going to prevent him from leaving the facility. It's like, you're not going to do this. You're going to get me in. I think, and the biggest reason that I think she was upset was because this guy wanted to basically go and let everybody know where Ilhan was. And it's like, I'm in South Florida. Like, are you trying to get me killed? Like, it was.
Well, and the thing is, they had specifically told him, do not post this, do not do this, whatever it was that he was trying to do. And then he was doing it anyway.
Yeah.
And she got right up and she was.
The toady that Debbie Wasserman Schultz has always had in South Florida is Tony Mann. And so this guy would have been the equivalent of Tony Mann. Like he's that type of person.
People don't know what that is. So Tony Mann is the quote unquote political reporter at the Sun Sentinel, although I use the term reporter extremely loosely regarding this piece of shit. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. So Ilhan was dealing with a toady like that.
Absolutely. And there is no getting around that. And so when the conversation gets brought up about why is it that we do not want to have anything to do with the Democratic Party, it's actually been brought up by Zainab in the chat, which is, why would Ilhan still be in the party? The only thing that I could say is it's the infrastructure that she has built in Minneapolis, St. Paul, that is allowing her to do and be an effective legislator as she is. And her people love her.
Yes.
Even though,
her numbers are always good. She does extremely well.
AIPAC has come for her. The Democratic establishment has come for her. But the Somalian population, which is very big in Minneapolis, they protect her. And they know that she serves the community. That's why they're going nuts about the Somalian guy who's running to be mayor of Minneapolis. Like, they're losing their mind. How could this be?
That's a very huge part, but they have a very large Somali and other parts of, quite honestly, other parts of Africa in Minneapolis. Like, there's definitely a very large African population there because they've taken in a lot of people that have been seeking asylum over the years.
And so I want everyone to see exactly what we're dealing with here when it comes to the Democratic Party, because I believe this may have been, this was not the Sunrise Movement. It was another group, but somebody was able to find out where Senator Gillibrand was going to be in the Hamptons at a private $5,000 a plate lunch fundraiser.
I could vomit. I really could friggin' vomit.
That this woman, her last name is, I'm not kidding, her last name is Fatto. That is her last name. I believe that she is an attorney, Lucy Fatto. So Lucy Fatto, I'm just going to lay this out here for you guys. Lucy Fatto is a woman that you're about to see in this clip, and she happens to be one of Senator Gillibrand's closest friends.
Thank you for fighting for the Hamptons. Put the Hamptons first, baby. Oh my God. Don't break the gate. Wait.
Could you imagine just standing there like that?
Wait, who is that? That's who?
Gillibrand.
Oh, she looks so old. Oh my God. Honestly, I don't recognize her. She does not look. Now the guy who is getting carried off is who though?
So they are part of, the organization is, the one that we had spoken to before. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's the, she looks like Daniela Weiss in a way. Well, listen, Kirsten Gillibrand, here's the thing about Kirsten Gillibrand. She makes me look like I have a tan. That's how white she is. And I'm pretty white. So
Peter's pasty.
I'm somewhat. I'm not entirely pasty.
I look tan next to you.
Well, I am actually.
And I'm one of the whitest people that I've ever met.
Listen, if I was out in the sun, as much as you were on your trip, then I would definitely say that I could definitely get some color like you. I haven't had that opportunity. But with that said, this is an event that they were able to get into somehow and make a real stink.
Don't break the gate. Right there? Let's do it.
But who is it? Almost looks like that Walter Matheson guy that we see.
Private Trump administration.
This is my home.
You are one of 9 Democrats to break rank.
This is my home. This
you
is
are
my
one of
home.
9 Democrats to break
This
rank
is my home.
and vote
I'm
for
sorry.
Trump's
It's my home.
resolution bill.
Step up or step aside.
Step up or step aside. Step up or step aside.
You guys are trespassing on private property.
Step up or step aside. Step up or step aside.
Step up or step aside. Step up or step aside.
Oh my God.
That's our senator.
Thank you for spending more time spreading Islamophobia. Thank you for spending more time spreading Islamophobia and hate than you spend fighting the big beautiful bill. Yes.
Do you know who I am?
Do you know who I am? Yes, Karen, we know who you are. You're Karen. But I have mixed thoughts on this, by the way. I have very mixed thoughts on this.
They did trespass.
Mm-hmm. That's private property.
They're lucky they're not arrested.
I honestly, let me tell you, when people disrupt events that are open to the public events and aren't in somebody's individual house or yard, I am all for it. But, here's the thing. If that were in Texas, they could get dead for that and it would be completely justified. So it's like, I have problems with them going into someone's yard. I do. That's not okay to do that. Now, do I think they should stand outside on the street and embarrass these people in front of all their neighbors for hosting yes, absolutely. Yes. I think they should do that.
Yes.
I am not averse to them waiting outside and totally, being loud but walking into her yard. That's not okay.
Now you have to remember something, that if this was East Hampton or Southampton, wherever it was, if they were in the streets and they were making a ruckus of any kind and calling out Senator Gillibrand, do you realize how fast the popo would have been there to clear them out?
They were anyway. I understand that, but that's where you create the scene in the public space. You don't go into someone's yard who's hosting a private event. And it's also, it's very dangerous. Again, they can do that there. You get to do that in the blue places. In the blue places, you can go into somebody's private yard and safely assume they're not going to have any sort of arms.
If you tried to do that in upstate New York or in New Hampshire, that's what
I mean. You try that shit in some place like Texas, and you're not coming out of that.
Yeah.
But I agree. Yeah, that bothered me that it was this woman's home. That's not okay to do that. But I do think they should have not given them peace and especially since they were holding the event outside. Had they been standing out in the street and being so loud that it disrupted the event inside, that I'm down with. That's what they needed to do.
And this is also where the behavior of progressives comes into question, where are you actually being effective in what you're trying to accomplish? Or are you making yourselves look like the radical left as the MAGA right so eloquently tries to paint you as constantly, and they will use that against you, and it works because it is effective. Now, with that said, Lucy Fatto wants you to know who she is. Do you know who she is? I'm going to tell you who she is.
Okay.
She is a corporate attorney since May of 2024. She has
Is that who the woman was who was saying, "Do you know who I am?" That's Lucy Fatto?
Yeah, get out of my $5 million Hampton home. So,
but then why was she okay? So she was hosting an event with Kirsten Gillibrand in her Hamptons home. Why was she wearing a schmata? She looked like she, why was she wearing a schmata if that was her? Anyway, okay, continue.
Well, you can take that one. I'm not touching that. Since May of 24, she has been the executive VP and general counsel for Seaport Entertainment Group. Prior to joining Seaport, she was the vice chair and general counsel for AIG. She held senior roles at Marsh and McLennan Companies and McGraw-Hill Financial. Board memberships. In 2018 and 2021, Fatto was appointed for a 3-year term to the New York State Insurance Advisory Board. Oh, that's good. Also on the board of directors of Life Insurance Council of New York. She is on the advisory board of Nardello and Company and was a cyber security group member of the Aspen Institute. She is on the boards of she's on the board of directors of the Coalition for the Homeless. We see how effective that organization is. Again, that's all about the goal is not to actually solve the homeless crisis. The goal is to make as much money as possible while pretending to care. During her time at AIG, Fatto was a member of the board of directors of Corebridge Financial. Since 2020, Fatto has been a member of the Alfred E. Smith Memorial Foundation. She has served on the board of the Harvard Law School Center for the Legal Profession since 2023. So what you have here is a corporate attorney who has been working since the early 90s. She's been licensed and has basically done everything in her capacity to back corporate special interests.
Well, look how well it serves her. Is that her? First of all, anybody who has a house where she is hosted, you're by definition the elite, just by the nature of you even being able to host something for Kirsten Gillibrand. It's just, these people are just in their whole own category of the universe.
There are few mega corporations that have as much corruption in their spreadsheet, if you will, than AIG. So I'm not going to go through her entire history, but what I will say, and I'll finish with this. At AIG, her duties as general counsel included overseeing global legal compliance and regulatory matters. She was also part of the company's executive leadership team and participated in all strategic and policy decisions regarding AIG's operations. In addition to overseeing legal, compliance, and regulatory matters, in 2021, she was tasked with responsibility for its government and public affairs, as well as communications. So basically, this is a corporate lawyer who gets paid a shitload of money to basically sweep up the messes of mega corporations like AIG. And that is how you can afford to have a multi-million-dollar vacation home in the Hamptons. And this is who funds the Democratic Party. This is who funds Kirsten Gillibrand. So when we say that there really isn't a difference between the two parties except on the margins and those slim margins, this is what you're dealing with. And this is why the Democratic Party is dead. because people like Fatto
in the shmata, which I saw somebody asking in the chat what I said. I said shmata. So shmata is a Yiddish word that means like
Yiddish isn't a real language.
Yiddish is a real language. I know it is. I grew up listening to it.
Well, the
So
Zionists would have to believe it's not.
A shmata is when you're wearing a ratty house dress. It's like a shmata is like a ratty piece of clothing. And it's the kind of thing that, like, if I was dressed like wearing like something around the house and then I was going to go out in that, my grandmother would be like, you're not going out in that shmata. That's what my grandmother would say. So that's what I see. Somebody looks like they're wearing a house dress or something. I'm like, they're wearing a shmata. Anywho. Also, I finally have a way, if I can share my screen,
Sure.
if you will allow me to do that. I don't know if man with long last name is in the chat still, but he's been asking to see Enoch for quite some time.
Okay.
And I am never going to be able to get a picture of Enoch because, well, he's a wild lizard and I really don't want to get that close to him, but he is pretty sizable. And so what I've done is I have a picture that I can share.
Go for it.
Of what it is. Okay. So guys, did you see it?
I don't see anything.
Oh, here it is. Hold on.
Wow.
So guys, this is Enoch. I mean, this isn't exactly Enoch, but this is in the family of Enoch. Enoch is a curly-tailed lizard and he's very sizable and he lives in my garage area. And this is what he does look like. So even though I will never have a picture of him exactly, I have found an imitation Enoch to show you that this is what he looks like. Anywho, so man with long last name, I hope you're there. And you've been asking to see him, and there's Enoch's clone.
Very cute. Now, I think it is important that we talk about Zohran in this context as we wind down this evening. You know, we talk about the good members of the Jewish community that are speaking up and speaking out. Well, I am going to share with you guys an interesting story about a very well-known conservative Zio, we'll just call him a Nazi at this point. Sid Rosenberg is a very well-known radio host in New York. I actually worked with him in 2005 when I was at WFAN. That was my first big internship when I was in college. And Sid and I, you know, we got along. I knew his agent. His agent is also a Zionist. But he was, you know, he was decent to me. I'm not going to say that he wasn't. But over time, he has evolved into this extremist Zion-Nazi, like in a very profound way. I'm not surprised that he has Dershowitz on all the time. As far as I could tell,
any friend of Dersh is shit.
Yeah. And so we have talked at great length about some of the guys that have been coming out, that have been speaking publicly in a very negative, bigoted way about Zohran. And it should come as no surprise before we transition into the Sid clip. Now, we are going to show a clip from our good friends over at Status Quo, that this is a protest that I guess was happening in the city over this previous weekend. And what you have here, which has always been the case with a lot of Italians, is they do not see themselves as Mediterranean or you know, just ethnically non-white. They see themselves as part of the white community. And so I think a lot of that stems from their attitudes towards people like Mamdani, even though Mamdani is basically the same shade of skin that the Italians and especially the Sicilians are. And so here's a little clip of what this so-called anti-American Zohran movement is trying to push right now as the mayoral race in New York continues to heat up.
Also, on behalf of Italian Americans everywhere, we're a very special group. We are the elite. And like I say, you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. Yeah. Now, we're here today not because of a statue, ladies and gentlemen. We're here because of a symbol of Italian American pride, our ancestry. We will not be erased. We are going to unite. We continue to unite under the banner of the Italian American Civil Rights League. We are the original group from 1970. I'm very proud to say that we are. We have with us within our ranks Anthony Colombo, who's the grandson of Joe Colombo.
You're flexing that you have the grandson of the second most powerful mafioso during the heyday of the 5 families in New York City?
These guys are ridiculous. I have to tell you that. These guys are ridiculous. And all it looks like to me are people that were basically cajoled, corralled, inspired by Cuomo under a table to come out and put up a fuss and try to make Mamdani look bad, because this is so stupid what they're talking about. We're back to the Christopher Columbus statue shit.
But why would you think that referencing Joe Colombo is a flex? Joe Colombo is the guy that basically had to oversee the entire production of The Godfather, and that you had to film it in a certain way as to never indicate that it's La Cosa Nostra or Mafia. That is all. I mean, aside from the fact that he was the head of the Colombo crime family, and Lord knows his grandson is as connected as anybody, and you're talking about this like it's a flex.
And Zainab, you're right. They don't represent most Italian Americans. And I really do wonder how much of this is Cuomo influenced.
It's definitely Cuomo influenced. And this is very much a Staten Island Italian type of
Exactly.
attitude.
So let's keep in mind that this is generally a more conservative group of people.
Yeah, right, yeah. Give it up. For Mamdani, he's not a communist. He's an Islamist Nazi.
An Islamist Nazi.
Fucking disgrace. Disgraziada. Disgraziada.
You have no business waving that flag.
No, actually he does. That is to me kind of indicative of where we are in terms of who we have become in the world, how we do not educate our people so that they are ignoramuses like this guy. Like, this is a prime example of what we produce. So he is exactly who is. And again, I'm not a flaggy person. I don't believe in like all of that nationalistic shit, but he's exactly who I would imagine waving that flag.
My grandfather killed fucking Nazis like you fucking fascists. We invented fascism. You are fucking Nazis. Get the fuck out of New York. Go back to Westchester. Go to Cuba. Go back to Westchester. Go to Cuba. Oh, yeah, I can't believe it. Why don't you have jobs? What are you doing?
Where are your jobs except collecting checks from the Mossad?
Well, these are retired people, so they're going to sit there like, oh my God, the young people. Well, if you could have jobs. Well, a lot of people don't have jobs because it's not worth having a job, because the job doesn't pay for you to do anything. But even if they do have jobs, it's not jobs where they need to necessarily be somewhere during the day, and people really do know this. So the fact that that's the comment is, again, just somebody who has nothing else to say. Where are your jobs? He gave the finger to the Christopher Columbus statue, which I don't know if he did or didn't. I don't really give a shit.
No,
okay,
he absolutely did. Christopher Columbus was a genocider. Like,
well,
period.
yes. I always find it interesting that Italian people who want to brag about Christopher Columbus as if he is somehow a good representation of your people. He's not.
No.
You have much better people that you could put out there to represent you than that piece of shit. So, yeah.
And they defend Colombo. Yeah, they defend Columbus like they defend Colombo. That's essentially, again, there is this. And what's always interesting about Italians and Sicilians is how much they hate the black community, and they always complain about how the blacks defend each other no matter how bad, you know, the crime is in places like East New York and Harlem and whatever. And yet the Italians, Sicilians defend the worst of the worst in their communities. They're such effing hypocrites. You defend Andrew Cuomo.
Well, and that's why I think this is what that is heavily related to, which isn't to say that the Columbus supporters, that they aren't going to do that anyway, because I've seen the Columbus supporters. This has been a thing ever since the rest of us woke up and decided that that's not somebody that we should be celebrating. And they've been defending it ever since. But I do think somebody like Cuomo was very, very relevant in pushing this at this time. I mean, this is just a way to go after Mamdani. I mean, clearly.
Mob Jews at the most high holiday with the riddles. He wants to have communist-run supermarkets. John Catsimatidis said he's going to close all his stores. Mercedes, Red Apple.
He wants to have communists
and the saddest thing of it all, a lot of the bodegas are run by Muslims. He's going to put even Muslim bodega owners out of business. People, wake up. Like Nazis. Wake up, anybody.
Oh my God. He's going to put...
He said, could you imagine? He's even going to take the Muslim side of power. And those
communists running
there'll
be communists running the supermarkets. Oh, the tragedy.
Jen, what can you say about this lady who's wrapped herself in the Israel flag?
I just, these are people that are just, they're very desperate at this point. They know. I mean, it's crumbling around them, but they're very ignorant. These are very, very ignorant people, but
I
love that. Anybody but communist Mamdani. He's not a communist. But then again, these are people that wouldn't be able to define communist.
That's true. But this transitions perfectly into the clip that I am now going to show you guys of the gentleman that he just referenced. So John Catsimatidis, if you don't know, is a multi-billionaire, billionaire with a B. He owns a slew of supermarkets across New York City. But what a lot of people don't talk about when it comes to Catsimatidis is the fact that he has been in violation of labor laws forever, underpaying his staff, price gouging, and political maneuvering, contributions of the highest order. So this behemoth of a man, and I mean that literally and figuratively, sat down earlier this week with Sid Rosenberg.
You realize that one of the people who speaks like him, I guess his hero is Bernie Sanders, right? In the meantime, Bernie Sanders is a legitimate millionaire. You do.
Bernie Sanders has been in public office. Again, granted, it's a career. There's no question about it. But Bernie Sanders has been in public office for over 35 years. He has been in the U.S. Senate for 17 years, 18 years. And over the course of that time, he's going to make some money. The guy has made an honest living ever since he's been the mayor of Burlington, Vermont. Ever since I was mayor of Burlington, Vermont.
I mean, look, we could pick on Bernie for a lot of things, and we definitely call him out for the reasons that I have said many times on this show. But him trying to put him in that class of people as like the millionaire class, it falls short. It's just not. He does not fall in that class. It just doesn't.
Here is the other thing that I have to point out about Sid Rosenberg. He has pumped so much shit into his body. I can't even imagine how he could ever pass a drug test if he was submitted for one.
I don't even know who this guy is. So
Sid Rosenberg has been in sports radio and eventually transitioned into news radio. He's on WABC in New York.
Okay.
He has a
So
show.
he's talking to who?
You're about to find out.
Okay, so
realize that Zohran Mamdani also comes from a family of millionaires. So while he's calling out people like you because you've had great success, he's rich.
Sid, it's one big con game. And you know, the con artist of con artists, who was the Crazy Eddie family?
Eddie Antar.
Eddie Antar, his brother, Sam Antar, who's a smart guy.
Yes.
Said it, that he took the Z-Man here, Zorro, took $10 million, spent it the right way, got all the young kids to show up at.
It's as if you're trying to insult him because he actually knew how to run an effective
Exactly.
one.
Right. He actually did something smart and ran a good campaign. Okay, gotcha.
This guy is such a it's so hard to look at him.
He looks like a cartoon character.
He does. He does. It's again, he may be Greek, but if you told me that he was one of the heads of the 5 families in New York, I would believe it because he just has that disposition about him. But this guy is a billionaire. And the reason he is a billionaire is because he has basically subjugated his employees and his customers with the worst form of monopolization, capitalism. Price gouging, lack of employee benefits.
Wait, and he's in what's his business?
So he owns a whole bunch of supermarkets, supermarket chains across New York City.
Okay.
And this guy, who obviously contributed a shitload of money to Trump and contributes a shitload of money to the GOP, he believes that he is a god among men, in his own mind, of course.
So he's calling out Mamdani for coming from a family with money.
Not just coming from a family with money. He's calling out Mamdani because he has the audacity to suggest that because groceries are so ungodly expensive because of people like him, that now we are going to do a test run, if he is mayor, by putting a government price-controlled supermarket in each of the 5 boroughs.
Good.
And this guy, who is as responsible as anybody for that being one of Zohran's key policy platforms, and he won as a result of it. Cost of living is the biggest reason that Zohran won. It wasn't because he was anti-Israel, although I have no doubt that that helped in certain respects, as it should.
No, because he's talking about the economy. It's the economy, stupid. So this guy's beef is that...
How much beef, Jen?
Oh, he's got a lot of beef. Is that he stands to lose because some other people might be able to get food without being ripped off, right? Like that's the gist
I mean,
of
if
it.
you can't charge $12 for a carton of eggs, I mean, where are you? You're living on the street. You know what I'm talking about?
Communists.
At the polls, and I guess it was 102 degrees that day. I guess all the legitimate people, all the smarter people, were smart enough to stay home.
So you realize that.
What I realize is that he's also a classist, as you can see. So he basically talks about how, oh, you mean the little kids? Yeah, they got nothing going on in their lives anyway. So of course they're out there at the polls. No, actually what it shows is that they actually care about their future so much that they're willing to risk heat exhaustion in order to elect somebody who might actually help them. You're the type of person that's been hurting them for multiple generations. And I haven't even brought up his daughter, this blonde bimbo influencer who hangs around at Mar-a-Lago all the time.
You mean a Nepo baby?
1,000%.
Gross.
And
Gross.
so Sid has done a real number, to say the least, in a big way. This is a guy who has called Zohran a terrorist, a commie, says the same thing about Bernie Sanders.
My favorite was Islamist fascist. That was on
Islamist
the sign.
fascist.
I love that was on that guy's sign that one guy was calling. He was saying he's an Islamist fascist. I love that. Like these guys really like to throw out the big words.
They do. It's not like they know what they're talking about,
I have
but they
no
do.
idea what they're talking about.
No. But therein lies the rub. We have been saying for a while that once the cat's out of the bag, it's not going back in. When people understand, no matter how progressive, conservative, libertarian, or even liberal, once you understand how the game works, and once you understand the very people who are screwing you, you will never, ever look at the system the same again because the cat can't be put back in the bag. Whether or not Trump is a pedophile, he is protecting pedophiles. And everybody knows that he's doing that. And he is destroying his legacy as a result. Now, I'm not going to get into South Park tonight because Jen will kill me for it, but I will get into it on Saturday. So when you tune in for Pontificating with Pete on Saturday, I am going to talk about that story. Poor Jen. What have I put you through?
That's how I feel when you want to talk about stuff like South Park. That's what the image that comes to mind.
So on Saturday, we will discuss Trump and South Park at length because Trey Parker and Matt Stone are really testing the waters to just how far they can go without their show getting completely kicked off the air, which I do think is very, very possible. And since we're now at 250 live viewers, which is our high mark for the evening, Jen, you got room for one more story?
It depends, but I also wanted to tell you, so that I don't forget to tell you, and you don't say I didn't tell you tomorrow. I'm going on tomorrow morning, but I'm going to be on with Jamal Thomas at 9 o'clock Eastern time.
Very nice. So guys, make sure you tune in for Jamal's show at 9 a.m. Eastern if you would like to see Jen, and then we will get a clip of that and we will post it on our channel. Look, we have said that you have these influencers on all sides of the political spectrum. Now, we've met Mehdi Hasan before. I think when it comes to the issue of Israel-Palestine, he is as close to getting it right as somebody who's in corporate media could possibly get. We have met not just Mehdi, but some of his benefactors. It's obvious that this is a career for him, and he will not cross that line with the Democratic Party. However, the reason I want to bring up this story with Jubilee, which I think is important, is what you're actually going to see here in these clips of those who are not just defending Trump, but are also defending Israel. These are essentially disciples of these bigger influencers. These are guys that in a lot of ways, I believe, want to be either the next legion of the Benny Johnsons and the Dave Rubins and the Steven Crowders of the world. But I also think you're talking with people that have basically been listening to their rhetoric for a long time and now just basically espouse their talking points. Charlie Kirk, if you will. And so here is some of the brief takeaways from the conversations that Mehdi had with these so-called influencers. You want to call them MAGA, conservative. Let's just say that they're a bunch of fools and they did get exposed.
Called innocent Palestinians. You don't think Palestinians are innocent?
Not all of them.
Because what about the 17,000 children who were killed?
They're doing the
17,000 children were killed, were they not?
A lot more have been killed than that, Mehdi. I don't understand why, of all people, he gets that number wrong. The number is probably closer to 250,000. So,
well, he's using whatever the official source number is in some whatever he's sourcing. Like he has to have an official cited number somewhere in order. I mean, this is a debate situation, so I'm assuming that. But
innocent.
Were they not innocent? Who's responsible for that?
Israel, who dropped the bombs.
Hamas is responsible. Hamas is responsible for hiding in hospitals and making tunnels underneath.
You know, the only thing that this guy is missing is a monocle to put over his eye, and he would really be, you know, just a different version of the Monopoly guy. He may not be old and gray, but he certainly has the get up down to a T. I do like that tie. I'm not going to lie. But you agree that the monocle is the only thing he's missing, right?
Well, he just looks like a character, and this is hard to take seriously. And this is yet another reason why I don't like debates in general, because it's just theater.
That's true.
It's not
So
productive.
when children are shot in the head by Israeli snipers, the Israeli snipers aren't responsible for that.
Look,
it's a simple question.
Here's the problem.
When Israeli snipers shoot Palestinian children in Gaza in the head, as eyewitness testimony and doctors' testimony proves, that's not the fault of the Israeli snipers.
This is the problem, because when you have
The problem is you won't answer the question. I'll ask you a third time. When Israeli snipers shoot Palestinian children in the head, is that not the fault of Israeli snipers?
Well, you gotta let me finish.
No, you got to answer the question. Fourth time.
Well,
when Israeli
I will
snipers
get to
shoot
your
Palestinian
answer.
children in the
I
head,
will get to your
we're running out
answer.
of time. I need to know what you think about innocent children.
Because I will
what
get
you
to-
said was pretty outrageous. You said
I will
so-called
get to your answer.
innocent Palestinians. For the fifth time, when Palestinian children are shot in the head by Israeli snipers,
What
is that
did-
not the fault
what-
of Israeli
what did those
snipers?
children do?
What did
they
you
do?
tell me? Did the children deserve to be shot in the head?
Because the problem is,
you
over
know,
there,
millions of people are watching you say
they
to
start
justifying the
brainwashing
killing of
children. They start brainwashing children at a very young age.
So you support?
It
No,
almost
that's
sounds.
what Israelis do. Continue.
It sounds to me like he's been listening to Yan Yellow Vice. That's what it
Yeah.
sounds.
Well,
Sniping.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say everything he said. Like, yeah, that is what Israelis do. They brainwash their people from birth. That's exactly.
And the fact that this guy's from Iran just makes it even more pathetic.
It is actually, yeah.
Children in Gaza.
Look,
do other people here support sniping children in Gaza? Is that a conservative position now?
What if they're wearing a suicide vest?
They weren't.
But what if they are?
They're not, though.
Well,
Dozens
what if
of
they
children.
are?
I have friends who
What-
went there.
what-
Doctors went to
what
Gaza.
if-
American doctors. They came back as we had multiple children.
What if
with
they're
gunshot
hell bent?
shots.
What if they're hell
What if
bent
they're
on
not?
killing you and your family?
A 10-year-old child, an 8-year-old child, a 6-year-old
They're-
child.
Because
This is
like
bad
I
for
said,
you.
like you
You're
said,
sitting on
they're
live
brainwashing
television
them. They're
where millions
This
of people are
isn't
going
gonna
to
age
see
well
your
for
neighbors
whoever
because
this
then
guy is.
you
millions of
support
people,
the killing of
millions
children.
of people don't know what's going on.
Even your fellow right-wingers are saying, don't go this far.
This isn't going to age well for that guy. And
Yes.
also the look is absurd. But I mean, just his position, it's not going to age well.
Well, speaking of not aging well, this is a clip of the guy who decided to say a lot of stupid shit, and it ended up costing him his job.
How would Connor's America look? What would it look like?
Well, quite frankly, I think we would deport people who shouldn't be here.
I didn't ask about
whether-
deporting. What does the government look like?
What does the government look like?
Yeah.
I would say, quite frankly, it's under a sort of benevolent leader, such as
Where does he
Franco.
come from?
It could be a kind of aristocratic class. Could be someone
No, but
who
who picks the autocrat?
Frankly, the people. I mean, we could hold a vote on it. Kings
So
were
isn't
paid.
that democracy?
Well, sure. You can have a vote to get to that stage.
And then no more votes afterwards?
Absolutely.
Wow.
100%.
Wow. And if that autocrat kills you and your family, you're fine with that?
Well, I'm not going to be a part of the group that he kills because
How do you
that's the
know?
whole thing.
How do
Well,
you know?
Carl Schmitt
Autocrats tend to kill everyone,
Carl
even their own
Schmitt makes
supporters.
this point very well in his work. It's the friend-enemy distinction, right? You
Carl
liberals,
Schmitt, the Nazi theoretician.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't care.
Are you a
Who
fan
ca-
of the Nazis?
I don't. I frankly don't care being called a Nazi.
I
At
didn't
all.
say that. I
Doesn't
didn't
matter
actually
to
say
me.
that. I said, are you a fan of the Nazis?
Well, they persecuted the church a little bit. I'm not a fan of that, but
everything else I'm okay with.
Wait, he's about to say that.
What about the
Yeah.
persecution of the Jews?
Well, I mean, I certainly don't support anyone's human dignity being assaulted. I'm a Catholic.
But
And
you
so
don't condemn Nazi persecution of the Jews?
I think that there was a little bit of persecution.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
That's like Obama. We killed some
We drove
folks.
some folks.
We killed some folks.
Yeah, that's what we did.
You have to
which is
rename
bad,
this show
but-
because you're a little bit more than a far-right Republican.
Hey, what can I say?
I think you could say, I'm a fascist.
Yeah, I am.
And you're out
Who
of it.
is this guy? The other name you put up was the other guy with the silly hat and mustache.
No, I think, well, guys, is Frank quietly the guy with the
Quietly.
quietly? Is that the Monopoly guy get up, or is it this guy right here? I mean,
And what is this? Why is Mehdi hosting like a round? It looks like a round table debate situation.
well, what Jubilee does is they have these conversations every once in a while where they'll bring like a whole bunch of people from either one side and they'll debate one person or vice versa. I've seen a conservative debate a whole bunch of liberals. It's the same effect. And they always pick the most quirky, kooky type of people to put on there.
Of course they do. It's theater.
And so that's why he makes a, jubilant face like that. But we have one more.
You're killing me because I know that, but Rachel made me something. There's a pizza waiting for me.
There's no pizza waiting for me, so you're going to have
That's
to.
your problem up there in the
Yeah,
panhandle.
Saying that Donald Trump was friends with Ghislaine Maxwell. When Ghislaine Maxwell, who's the worst child sex trafficker of our lifetime, she's serving over 20 years. Do you know Ghislaine Maxwell?
Yeah, she's actually not. Jeffrey Epstein's the worst sex
He's dead. I'm talking about people who are alive right now.
It's interesting, though, you didn't use his name, right? Wouldn't he be the one who did this?
Oh, great. I'm glad you brought up Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein, before he died, did an interview with Michael Wolff. He's on tape. I don't know if you heard the tape. He says, my closest friend was Donald Trump. I was his closest friend. Elon Musk, I'm not sure if you've heard of him. He tweeted recently that Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files. Yeah. And Ghislaine Maxwell, who was the right-hand woman of Jeffrey Epstein, when she was on trial for child sex offending, which you and I are opposed to, Donald Trump stood up and said, good luck to her, I wish her well. So yeah, that makes him pro-crime and pro-criminal if he's being soft on child sex traffickers,
well, you just said they
like
were his
Epstein.
Friends. He's
no, I'm saying he was friends. He was friends with Epstein. You haven't seen the videos? They danced together, partied together. Epstein said I was his closest friend.
He's not supported the pedophilia part. The only people supporting pedophilia
that's not
are
true.
the left.
Trump gave a speech about 20 years ago where he said, Epstein's a great guy. He loves young women. A lot of them are very young. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, laugh, laugh. So yeah, I think he's pro-crime and pro-criminal.
I would agree. And I also think that there are a lot of things that are being exposed right now that for some people that see Trump as some type of a hero, they're having a really hard time dealing with it. They don't want
if this is what if the Epstein shenanigans is eventually what leads to the splintering of a party that is part of our duopoly, then I'm all for it.
That's what's happening.
And that's fine. If that's what this is going to be for them, this is going to be their big moment where they split off because they just can't abide this particular pederass, but they've abided multiple other in the past pederasses in the same. I don't know. But yeah, I'm personally very over the Epstein story. The only part of it that has any real relevance at this point to me is the connection with Israel. And what that really is historically been in our country and what that really looks like. But as far as we know who's on that list, we know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to see it. It's like, by the way, and I did see something about this posted earlier and I don't know where I saw it, but something that is very telling about how we treat women or how we don't respect women who come forward and speak their stories and tell their truth, because we know who's on the list because there have been many, many victims that have testified as to what has happened to them and have named people, but we won't believe them. It's like we need to see it in an official document format written by some man somewhere in order for you to believe that these are the people that did what these women have said that they did. So, yeah.
And I think he's soft on sex offenders. Do you have any friends who are criminals?
Not that I know of. Certainly not child sex offenders. No, do you?
No, of course not.
Okay, so we're both in agreement again. So why are you defending Donald Trump?
If it came out tomorrow that one of your friends was a child sex
trafficker, you know what I'd do?
You'd stop being friends with them.
Yes, and I wouldn't say.
And then I'd go on TV and I would say, "Oh, look, Mr. Hasan was friends with this guy 10 years ago. Therefore, he's pro-child sex trafficking." What if Mr.
Hasan said, "I wish them well when they're on trial"? Wouldn't you ever go at me for that?
You wish your friend well on trial?
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything to that statement. I think
I don't either.
It's Trump, and this is his way of like trying
to that to me is just a I mean, Trump always says stupid shit that comes out of his mouth.
I wish them well. Good luck.
Exactly. That to me is just, you can't make
that's not a gotcha, no matter how much
no.
Child sex trafficker. Would you be mad?
I wouldn't wish someone well, but that's
Donald
your
Trump
gotcha.
did.
That's your gotcha.
It's a pretty big gotcha.
Jeffrey Epstein lived in West Palm Beach, the area, and that's the closest golf course you can go to.
Do you think?
And he's very,
do you think
rich,
Donald Trump is in the Epstein
so
files?
he paid.
Do you think Donald Trump is in the Epstein files?
As soon as Trump found out,
do you think Donald Trump is in the Epstein files?
No, I do not.
Is Elon Musk lying?
Let me explain this.
Okay.
He lived in the area in Mar-a-Lago, near Mar-a-Lago, so he bought obviously a ticket to go in there.
Yep.
I would have the same smirk on my face as Mehdi does. If there was one thing I can assure you, as somebody who was a Delray Beach resident for 7 years, Palm Beach, everybody knows
everybody. They're all friends. They're all, if you're living in that side over the, I mean, yeah, it's a small island and we're not invited to live on it.
And granted, this is a very young kid. That's pretty obvious that he's just impressionable.
Talk about indoctrination.
100%. And so I've pointed this out on the podcast before. I will mention it again. Howard Lutnick, who is the Secretary of the Treasury, who is a close confidant of Trump's, was also one of Hillary Clinton's biggest financial benefactors. And if that's not enough, Howard Lutnick was Jeffrey Epstein's neighbor on Palm Beach.
They're all friends.
All of them. So when Trump says, I totally don't know what was going on, you most sure as shit did know what was going on. And I'm not here to say that he 1000% was a participant, but to suggest that he did not know that there was child fucking going on and sex trafficking going on, he sure as fuck knew it. He knew all of it, and he knew it for years. And the only reason, much like anything else that happens in our country, much like the genocide that is happening in Gaza right now, there's only one reason. Fuck you, Saul. It's all about money and power. And just like that dumbass who went on CNBC the other day to complain about Zohran, saying we have $26 billion tied up in investment with Israel. Well, that's all that it comes down to, baby.
That sounds like a you problem.
Yeah.
That sounds like a Zio-ethno state problem to me. That doesn't sound like a me problem, because my money is not caught up there.
Neither is mine.
Exactly. That does not sound like a me problem.
We want to thank you guys, obviously, for being here this evening. This has been it's been a really great show, tremendous show. You guys have all done great. But for the final time this evening, in case anybody's feeling generous, patreon.com/revolutionary change. For as little as $5 a month, you could become a supporter of our small but mighty and growing channel. Right now, we currently sit at 47,317 subscribers.
How long do you think it'll take us to cross 50?
Well, considering that on Monday we were sitting at just over 47,000, we've gained over 300 subscribers in, I guess, 3 days. I mean, look, if we're getting 100 subscribers, if we are fortunate enough to get 100 subscribers a day, we are definitely sitting pretty, and we will definitely be able to hit 50,000 by the end of the summer. And I think we would definitely sign up for that. I assume you would agree with that, Jen.
If we would do what by then?
Hit 50,000 subscribers.
I hope so. I hope so. But then again, I never know. It's like, I don't know.
Hang on life's a journey. Enjoy the ride. And we are in for one heck of a ride. Maximus, thank you so much for the $9.99. Maximums. For some reason, I feel sad for Jews associated to Zionism. I feel they are victims of their own racism and supremacy. They are so evil, they are forever stained. They are corrupt and evil, but don't care. Now, the only thing that I will say, if it's any type of defense, is that yes, a substantial portion of them are born and bred into this hateful ideology. Hopefully, a number of them, like Jen, are able to get out of it. But when you're indoctrinated that deep, it is hard to get out.
But the people that it is important, like, and I don't think you should necessarily feel sorry for them, right. But the people that are really the ones that are getting screwed here are the non-Zionist Jews, because we're the ones that are being tainted and stained with this, and our legacy is going to be this. We are people that will go from Holocaust survivors to Holocaust perpetrators in 2 generations.
Pretty quick. Chris Garrett, great to see you as always. 18 months. What's even more amazing is that Chris has been with us for the long haul, as he's been an amazing supporter of Status Quo. And he, of course, has been here watching our channel go from having 30 live viewers to having 230 live viewers. So to say that it's gratifying to have you here is an understatement.
We know who our original people are. We know who our people are.
It is a class war against organized wealth. We agree on that. Brett Boyle, our trusty mod.
And yes, we saw you were a little late. That's okay. Life comes up. This isn't a serious gig here for you. We're all good.
It's all good. Fascism is capitalism plus murder. Upton Sinclair. Yeah, that's a good quote. JG 1982, thank you so much for the $5. Jubilee worse than Piers Morgan for stirring shit. No reason to debate fascism or Zionism. It's like debating Hitler. It's impossible to debate stupid.
Yeah.
What I will say to that is, with this particular crowd, I think it was only important. The only reason I decided that it was worth showing is because I want people to see what the effects are of the other content creators that are out there. And now you see the effect that it has on potentially millions of people who think just like they are told to think by the influencer classes like the Nelk boys of the world that are paid to spew this bullshit. Because in the end, it really is just about money and power. And that's what we're trying to change. Because for us, it is a mission, and a mission that we are going to continue to fight. So smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things that we ask you to do, as Brett has indicated. I will be with you guys for Pontificating with Pete on Saturday at 7. So Jen has a little few days off before we return on Monday. But with that said, we've got lots of great guests coming up, including some books. There you go. There you go. So that's what you're in for on Saturday evening. So bring the potato chips, bring a beer, alcoholic or non-alcoholic if you so choose. Maybe we'll talk some sports. One story that we will absolutely be talking about on Saturday that you're going to want to tune in for. I will be talking about the highly controversial South Park episode that just dropped yesterday regarding Trump and what implications that may have as far as whether or not they are going to get sued for what they did.
So basically, Saturday's Pontificating will be an oral dissertation on South Park and exploring the intricacies of its intersection with man and politics.
Screw you guys, I'm going home. Smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things that we ask you to do. We love you all. I will see you Saturday. And
Free Palestine.
good night, guys.